News Bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is Thursday, the 3rd of October, 2024. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. 3 officers from the Central Division remain in custody as part of an ongoing investigation into the alleged kidnapping for ransom of a used car dealer in Cunupia. The arrests made by officers from the Professional Standards Bureau and the Anti-Kidnapping Unit up to yesterday came after police vehicles suspected of being involved in the crime was impounded the day before. 2 of the 3 officers in question are from the County Police Station. 1 out of the 3 is currently assisting investigators in locating missing victim Satchel Kunjberry. According to police sources, Kunjberry was allegedly abducted on September 25th when the car he was traveling in was stopped by a marked police vehicle flashing blue lights at 5 p.m. 3 men, 2 dressed in tactical police uniforms, forced the man into the police vehicle, while the 2 others accompanying him were left unharmed. It is alleged a ransom of $500,000 was paid for Kunj Bihari's release on September 29th, but he was not released and remains missing at this time. Police within the Central Division have remained tight-lipped over the incident. However, officers have expressed concern over the allegations, saying if true, more damage will be done to public trust and confidence in the police service. And the Office of the Attorney General has been directed by the High Court to pay a combined total of more than $0.5 million to a Vancouver couple for wrongful arrest and malicious prosecution. In what has been described by Justice Ricky Rahim as one of the worst cases of police abusing their power that's ever found its way before his court, the judge strongly criticized the actions of the officers, which he described as unlawful. He says based on the evidence, they fabricated evidence against the couple and made a poorly orchestrated attempt to justify their unlawful acts. The judge made a ruling on Tuesday in favor of Kevin and Natalia Barrow, who filed a lawsuit against the state following the arrest and prosecution in May of 2016. They were represented by the civil claim by attorney Abdel Mohammed. Judge Rahim opined, quote, "These events appear to have been that of pure abuses of power by the police, who took it upon themselves to forcefully enter the house without lawful authority, only to attempt to justify the entry by telling untruths later on. The evidence in the case was that on May 25, 2016, the couple was at their home when police and tourists entered and placed Kevin under arrest. He was released the next day." The judge also said he did not believe the officers had in their possession any warrant to enter the couple's home, as they claimed. He says one of the worst incidents of abuses of power that's ever come before his courtroom. The outrage continued with calls for a full investigation over the handling and outcome of the match following the Trinidad Night Riders TKR defeat to Barbados Royals that outraged TKR fans are now claiming that the match was sabotaged. The Barbados Royals were minutes away from elimination against the TKR when faulty lights at the Providence Stadium in Guyana delayed the match for over 2 hours. By the time the problem was sorted and play resumed, TKR's opponents were given 5 overs to score 60 runs using the Duckworth-Lewis-Stern method. The Royals attained the target score, eliminating the Night Riders from the competition, effectively vexing thousands of fans across the region and calling for a rematch and a full investigation. A 19-year-old mother and a 1-year-old child and 2 other people have been arrested in connection with the abuse of a child after the video of the alleged abuse went viral on social media. The child, who was being treated at the San Fernando General Hospital up to date yesterday, had marks of violence about its body. ACP Wayne Meister said he'd received a call about an incident involving a 1-year-old child. He said a video and graphic images were also shared with him, prompting immediate action. The video showed 2 children lying on a mattress, sleeping, when someone began stomping on them, awakening them. The children began screaming and crying. The video lasted 17 seconds long. The child's sister, mother, and boyfriend are assisting the Child Protection Unit with the ongoing investigations. The hunting season is officially opened, according to the Ministry of Agriculture. It ends on the 28th of February, 2025. The season closed its run from April 1st to September 30th, 2025. The ministry says during the period March 2025, the listing game species will be removed from the schedule and hunting during that period is prohibited. It says all state game licenses are now $180 per game species, and there's a limit of 3 state game licenses per hunter. Barbadian billionaire entrepreneur and international pop star Robin Rihanna Fenty's popular Fenty brands will soon be available across the Caribbean region, including Trinidad and Tobago. Rihanna, as she's known worldwide, announced on October 1st that her billion-dollar beauty, skincare, and fragrance brands, Fenty Beauty, Fenty Skin, and Fenty Fragrance, will be available in the Caribbean from October 24th. There's a new minimum wage in effect in St. Lucia. St. Lucia Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre announced the implementation of a new minimum wage effective October 1st. The legislation mandates a minimum monthly wage of $1,131 or $6.52 per hour. In his national address, Prime Minister Pierre acknowledged this new wage is long overdue and urged employers not to send home workers now that their minimum wage has been increased. Finally, the United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres has expressed alarm at the rapid escalation of hostilities in the Middle East in the wake of Iran's missile attack against Israel and Israel's limited ground incursions into Lebanon. Guterres told the UN Security Council, quote, "It's absolutely essential to avoid an all-out war in Lebanon, which would have profound, devastating consequences." Pointing to the rise in the number of people being displaced from affected countries, the Secretary General underscored the point that civilians are the ones paying the heaviest price in the region for these ongoing areas of conflict. And that is news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We'll have major news coming your way at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
On this, the 3rd day of October. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show. Yep, of course, it's all about the hours this morning. We just heard from Dr. Paul Richards. We'll hear from Richard Ragoobarsingh. We got Ruben, and then we got Shane, all in the mix. Of course, my name is Steve. 25 degrees at Piarco International Airport, same in our beautiful sister Isle of Tobago. What the Met Office is saying our weather is going to be today, well, hot, sunny over most areas, with the exception of a light shower. Is a medium to high 60 to 70% chance of the isolated thunderstorm activity favoring northern and eastern areas developing from mid-morning. All right, so that's your weather. So let's say we should get some rain, get some sun. Traffic-wise, Freeport to Sugargonas. After that, it's just congestion. All right, as you head into the capital city, as most of you all do. Good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone. This week is flying by quite quickly.
Yeah, it is indeed. It is indeed. It's been a busy week. Lots happening for the week. Of course, Guyana lost their game last evening. So St. Lucia won. I didn't watch the game out. I just watched a little bit. I was just tired because I waited for lights to come on night before and got little sleep. So I was tired. Everybody is saying it's sabotage.
Well, they're calling for an investigation.
Well, they should.
There's outrage over the region. Outrage over the region. Someone doesn't usually make his feelings known. One of the big cricketers, what's his name?
Michael Holding.
No, I don't think it's him.
Okay.
What is it? I can't remember his name.
Okay.
He went on social media and was cursing, very, very upset.
Oh, you're talking about Russell?
Russell, yes.
Andre Russell. Yeah. He was on a... Woo.
Well, he's echoing the sentiments of a lot of people that the occurrences in the match were curiouser and curiouser.
Yeah. Yeah.
and almost, in some people's opinions, designed to give the hosts the victory.
Yeah. And there was
But
another
the
video.
Barbados Royals.
Yeah,
You
there
know.
was another video circulating. A gentleman was in a hotel where the TKR was staying, and eventually called them losers, losers. Well, they did not win last evening, so they did not win.
Well, we'll see how it goes. But
We'll see
people are
how
very
that.
upset over how that match situation was handled with the lights going out and staying out for so long.
Hmm.
And I mean, is it 2 hours or something like
Yeah,
that?
pretty much, and then the lights came on like 2 minutes before the cutoff time, and that's when the Duckworth Lewis Stern system came into play. I don't know. I don't know. But good run, guys. That's all we can say. It's not come and gone. Good run.
It's cricket, so you know me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good run. It was a good run. Of course, the finals is, I believe, on Sunday at 7 o'clock. We'll see who gets into that. All right. Let's say good morning going out to some people that sent us hellos this morning, like Gothley in Valencia, Boy Badesi in Davie, Anthony Tinto in Ontario, Canada. I think it's Brampton. Oliver Man Warren, DJ Ray out in Tampa, Wendy and James, Ewart Rajpal, Michael Mapp, Maria Celia, Brenda Isaac, Wayne Bennett out in Covenant, Georgia, D. Pierre, Carol Guevara out in Chicagonas, Nikisha Pierre, Brent Hackshaw, CJ New York, Bisnath Facade, Gloria Gray, Bill Cordes, and Noel. Good morning. And out in Oshawa, good morning to you. Shuin Kerr, Janelle Salvery, good morning to you. Trinidad Boston, long time. Denise Downing, morning. Kerwin Duke, Patricia DeFord, David Wares, and of course Mrs. Wares, and Ewart Rajpal, GNC Auto Security. We have, who's this? This is Vincent out in Birmingham, UK. Captain Ron somewhere. Where is he? He's home in Orlando celebrating his birthday today. So happy birthday to you, Captain Ron. All the best to you. We have Anthony in Toronto. We got Val, Danraj, Trevor in Arima, Sankofa, good morning, and GNC Auto Security. All right. So happy birthday, Captain Ron. All the best to you. You're in the best month ever. Just thought I'd let you know that. And Riri,
good morning to TGPS.
Yes, good morning to TGPS.
I don't know. So the officers from the Central Division, who apparently are in custody, and they're being questioned as part of an ongoing investigation into, and well, it's a kidnapping because they're saying alleged kidnapping, but it's a kidnapping for ransom because the information that's come to the public domain is that there was a marked police car in the vicinity of the kidnapping. The victim is Sachal Kunj Bihari. He's a used car dealer, if I'm not mistaken. According to the police information that has been released in the public, he was allegedly abducted on September 25th. When the car he was traveling in was stopped by a marked police vehicle with flashing blue lights. 3 men, 2 dressed in tactical police uniforms, forced Kunj Bihari into the police vehicle. Of course, there were 2 other men in the car with Kunj Bihari who were left, who I guess were telling the story. It is also alleged a ransom of $500,000 was paid for the safe return of Kunj Bihari.
Which has not happened
which has been paid, and he has not been released.
Who can you trust?
Well, it's an ongoing investigation, so it don't look good.
But who can you trust?
And I'm hearing reports of another incident this morning. Or yesterday, I should say. Something, I mean, look, they need to, I don't know. This don't look good at all. It just does not look good.
No. I mean, you have that happening. We've heard of regiments, shells.
It's true. Even if you see a marked police vehicle and people in police uniforms tell you come out the car, you have to be on there to come out the car.
I don't know. I don't know what this. But you know what? Have we heard anything from the authorities as the TPS?
Well, yeah,
On a press
they
release?
called senior police officers who said the investigation is at a sensitive stage, so there's not much they can divulge now because it will compromise the investigation and or the potential safety of the person. But if this person has been abducted since September 25th, that's 8 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
8 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And a ransom allegedly paid, and he still wasn't released.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't, well, we hope for the best. Let me just put it like that. And
I don't know.
the Office of the Attorney General has been directed to pay by the High Court to pay $500,000 to a Vancouver couple for wrongful arrest and malicious prosecution in what the judge, Ricky Rahim, described as one of the worst cases of police abusing power ever found its way into his court. He said they entered the people's house without a warrant and then lie to cover up the wrongful arrest of Kevin and Natalia Barrow. Wow.
Yeah, you said the Attorney General. It's us. We have to pay it.
Well, when the city attorney general is not necessarily Reginald or senior counsel, you know,
No, and we have to pay it.
it's taxpayers paying it. It's coming
Yes.
from the Office of the Attorney
The
General.
officers should be paying it.
Well, even if the officers don't pay it, my issue is because there's no provision in law for officers to pay it out of their own pocket. But there is provision in law and in the regulations for police who do what these people, the judge said they do. Okay? They can be sanctioned, disciplined, and or fired
That don't happen.
because they lie in court.
That's another charge.
Okay? That's perjury. And what will happen to them? Will the police leadership come out and say, well, based on the outcome of the case and the cost to the state because of the malfeasance of these officers, are they going to be disciplined and or fired? No, but they move them to Sangre Grande or Citrus, and that is
Yeah,
it.
they'll move them to Matlot and
You know, and that's the problem. They keep doing these things and not making statements about what the consequences to these officers are. And because the police has always been, to me, reluctant to take disciplinary action against officers who seem to have broken the law or been indisciplined because they're afraid court. What are you afraid court for? Court is part of the run. Because if it was an ordinary citizen, they'd have charged them and put them through the criminal justice system. I just don't understand. So that judgment came down. So we'll wait and see if there's any announcement from the police, the commissioner of police, here with Christopher, on what is to be the fate of those officers based on the outcome of that case and the judge's scathing rebuke.
that's why they don't want body cams.
Scathing rebuke of the incident. The judge said, and I quote, "These events appear to have been that of pure abuse of power by the police, who took it upon themselves to forcefully enter the house without lawful authority, only to attempt to justify the entry by telling untruths later on." And this thing about, it's being investigated by the Professional Standards Bureau. Himself investigating himself. Right? On the morning of May 27th, officers, and this is after they enter the house on May 25th there, they arrest the man and release him, and then they went back on May 27th, kicked the back door, entered the house before carrying out a search. The officers claimed they had found drugs. No drugs were ever presented in court in the case. I mean, really. And them keeping their work.
Yeah,
Them keeping their work.
still getting a salary at the end of the month because they know, you know what, fellas, they're just investigators. They'll move on, but we'll continue.
What should have happened
Still have a
immediately
check
following
at
the
the end of the
outcome
month.
of that case is the commissioner should have been sent out a release or been in the media saying these officers have been fired. They have been fired. for bringing the police into disrepute, fired, and lying in a courtroom and concocting a false case. They should have been fired. The day following. That's what restores public trust and confidence, not silence. Not silence, Mrs. Here with Christopher. Silence, which you're very good at, seemingly.
Well, she's very good at that.
I try not to be cranky this morning. I read that I was cranky yesterday.
Not saying anything there.
I thought I was cranky every day.
But no, not every day. But again, the speed of the corporate communication department of the TTPS is quite slow.
The what?
The speed
of the what department?
The corporate communication
department
of the corporate communication department.
Corporate communication department. Well, keep in mind, I have it in good account that very often the corporate communication department and other arms of the police service want to make statements, and allegedly the commissioner didn't want nothing said. Commissioner seems to have a painful relationship with the media.
It's not the media. It's for the population.
But somebody should write a memo and tell her that.
It is for the population. How can one have faith within the TDPS when the head of the TDPS, don't say nothing, don't release anything? So what's going to happen? Hearsay.
I wouldn't say she doesn't say anything. I would say she says very little, and not usually in a timely manner.
The police pulls you over now. What are you supposed to be? Oh yes, I'm safe.
But if you don't comply with the police, you break any law,
But I've watched.
If you do comply with lawful police instructions, you are breaking the law,
No, but I like to watch these police shows, and there's so many little videos on social media. And let's say after a high-speed chase or a drug bust or something, the police officers are pretty much, this is what I watch on television, as sympathetic to people. You okay? You want to get an ambulance? You want to do this? Throw it back up, pick up. Take him down the road.
They should not be fired when they enter a house unlawfully without a warrant. Say it had drugs in the house, wrongfully arrest people, and lie in court about it. They should continue being officers, Oliver Manwaring. You comfortable with them continuing to be police officers? Okay.
Oliver, I would say yes, fire them, and let them pay out of the pockets after they're out of the TPS.
He said they shouldn't be fired.
No, fire them.
So they should continue being police officers? How? In what universe? Let me repeat what the judge said.
Repeat it.
Missed it. The Office of the Attorney General has been directed by the High Court to pay a combined total of more than $500,000 to a Vancouver couple for wrongful arrest and malicious prosecution. Justice Ricky Rahim described it as one of the worst cases of police abusing their power that found its way before his courts. He said, based on the evidence, they fabricated evidence against the couple and made a poorly orchestrated attempt to justify the unlawful acts. The drugs that they say the couple had in the house never presented in court.
And because it's in the ceiling.
And they didn't have a warrant to lawfully enter. So how they keeping the job? How they continue to be police officers? How under what grounds? I'm confused.
An example must be made. It is unwritten that once you get into the police service, you're good for life. You have power, you have gun, you're there for life, you'll get your pension.
You are not there for life.
Well, it is unwritten, I'm saying. Only one police officer that we know of has been fired.
But that doesn't mean
as the caller indicated last week. I don't know, yes. I don't know. Who are we to trust? Spent shells with regiment markings on it being
Okay,
found.
all right. What you mean they should pay first and then be fired? Okay, well, you've clarified now. But your first statement was they should not be fired, eh?
No, both
Oliver?
at the same time, man, Ollie. Both
Oliver?
at the same time.
I don't know.
Maybe that should be our poll. Should officers pay out of their own
We
pocket?
asked that already. There's no provision in law for
thought
that.
so. Yeah, I figured we did. It sounded familiar.
It's just, I mean, and then the silence of the police leadership on these serious issues that continue to negative the public perception of police and seriously negatively impact police public trust and confidence in the police service. As a front page story in 3 papers this morning.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to the story about the alleged involvement of officers in a kidnapping.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really.
When I call a high-ranking officer of the TDPS to come on the program, a couple of times I have to do it. Oh, well, I have to get permission first, so give me a minute. And it goes into Never Land. I have to keep calling. Is it okay for you to come on? Is it okay? Did you get it?
Wow, that's what I can see. I think there's something else I hear this morning that I can't divulge.
Oh, gee, I hate when you do that. People, don't you always hate when he does that?
That also involves police officers. But I'll go here later today. The reason that the law is in place that the state pays is because in most cases with the judgments, the officers don't have the resources to pay. But the law should state they pay what they can pay and the state pay the balance. They clear them out and then the state pay the balance. But then sometimes they do strippers and their families lose their house and the wife and the children in the streets. And says, but what should happen is that what the police service can do is take strong action by, for example, in that case, terminating the service of the officers. But no, they just move them to a different department.
Just move them to Backlot, Cedrus,
for them to continue
Wary.
Continue malfeasance. Look, let me tell you something. I don't know. This morning, and you won't hear a thing from the police leadership. Not a thing.
No.
So what is the story here? And I didn't see this video. But the story is that a 19-year-old mother and a 1-year-old child. Good morning, Ragoobarsingh.
Morning, Richard.
Good morning, guys.
And
good morning to our listeners and viewers.
Other people have been arrested. They arrest a 1-year-old child? Richard, you could arrest a 1-year-old child or the media making boo-boo?
Start over that Paul.
Can you arrest a 1-year-old child, Richard?
No.
Theoretically, but it's unusual because they have no sense of
right, wrong,
right or wrong.
Yeah. They have no agency. A 1-year-old child, but the story maybe they have no agency.
Well, they have no, and not only that, they have no capability of mens rea.
Yeah. Well, maybe the media wrote it wrong. Anyway, a 19-year-old mother. This is what the story. How the story is. A 1-year-old child and 2 other people have been arrested in connection with the abuse of a child. The child is currently being treated at the San Fernando General Hospital, and the child supposedly had marks about the body. According to, there's a video apparently circulating where the 2 children lying on a mattress sleeping when someone began stomping on them.
What?
The children began screaming. The video is apparently 17 seconds long. ASP Wayne Meister received the information on the distressing footage. A team, including the Child Protection Unit and the Emergency Health Services, went to the Claxton Bay area. And of course, the rest is history. I haven't seen the video, so I don't know.
Maybe they meant the child was taken into protective.
The child was taken into protective care.
Protective custody. Maybe that's what they mean.
Right, but that's why I said I think the media probably got it wrong because I don't know that you can arrest a 1-year-old child.
No, you can't arrest.
You understand? There's no
1-year-old child
for arresting a 1-year-old child.
No,
who don't have any.
There's a thing, I think is it under 4, 5, or 6? Can't remember the exact age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We ain't hear nothing from Gideon Dixon on that case that Judge Rahim ruled on also. The Police Social and Welfare Association. You understand? But them going to keep their work. Shall we open the phones?
We can do that. Bob,
Let me just stay calm today.
17-second video. Bobby didn't send it for me. So Bob sent it for me. All right. 31 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock. 222-8255. North Americans toll free 866-525-1099. Of course, just for your knowledge, our WhatsApp number is 3181021. All right. We'll take some of your calls. Our lines are open. And of course, you can go on our mobile app or website and vote on our morning poll where we asked you yesterday, do you think the investment in national security is bearing fruit? All right. Vote on that. You have a few minutes again to vote on that. All right. Got some calls coming through. Let's go.
You enabled local recording or something like that?
What?
If I did?
Yeah.
No, it's the program has been updated, so it's now available.
Yeah. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
How are you all doing this morning? I see frustration in the police service. It all goes back to the conversation with the Minister Mariano Brown. When you all had him on the program, I was trying to call in since then. Everything, man, say, nobody willing to stand up for nothing. And I keep saying that on the program. It's because of political will. They want to get back in government. Nobody willing to stand up to do the right thing in this country. And it will continually to get worse and worse and worse until people grow some and stand up for what is right in Trinidad and Tobago and forget about everything else. I was on YouTube right now, guys. I just always come with some kind of facts to take a look at. Look at things like Trinidad history with Randall Burrows and all these guys who try to get the country on the right track. We have people in this country who are willing to stand up to do the right thing to get the country forward. But then we have others who will make excuses for people. They say, well, the population can't do this and the population can't do that. And what we doing, we have to do for the population. But if we keep doing and bending the rules and not drawing a line in the sand, we're going to keep going down this road. Look at, again, the El Salvador president that's making waves across the world. El Salvador was one of the highest crime-riddled countries in the world. And right now they're in the lowest in less than 5 years. Because the prime minister of El Salvador say what? Enough is enough. He trained a special group of police officers and soldiers, and he put them out. He built up a maximum security retention center and put you're associated with a gang. You think you're associated with a gang, and they put them in there. And when the human rights associations come and say, oh, you're breaking the human rights of the people, you know what he said to them? He said when the country was going through all the killings, hundreds of killings a day, nobody wanted to come to help save the country. People say, oh, that is your country. You have to figure it out for yourself. Nobody wanted to come. Now the UN saying human rights. He said to the UN, listen, guys, this is my country and this is how we want to resolve it. And he get voted back in for another term. And he have an 83% approval rating. Why? Because he was a leader that decided enough is enough. And if this is the way I think it needs to be solved, I'm putting things in the infrastructure in first, and then I'm going in hard for it. I don't know why we can't do that in Trinidad. And we way smaller, 1.3 million people, and we can't get crime right. Every time a police officer do something wrong, we have to make an excuse for the officers. The association has to jump up and say, oh, well, the officer this and the officer that. You're right, doctor. Fire them as soon as. Fire them. You make a case first for some sort of injustice. You put them on suspension, no pay, until the matter is resolved. If the matter take 10 years, they ain't get paid for 10 years. But if they found in the right, they could get a back pay. they must have a positive and a negative effect to every
Well, there's a presumption of innocence while a court case is going on, and to penalize somebody without pay while a determination has not yet been made by a court that they're guilty is not natural justice to me.
But that's to you, and that's where the problem is, Mr. Richard.
Well, we can't solve breaking law by breaking law.
When we're breaking the law, you make a law. You make a law. That is why we have our government. Yeah, see, that's the same thing. We would always agree to disagree because nobody willing to stand up. Mr. Richard, you in Senate, Dr. Richard, sorry, you in the Senate, independent senator. You could, and I was listening to you all the time, and I agree with you. You will see the nonsense there and then say, but this is not common sense. People not using the common sense to make these decisions. And then we end up doing the same thing all over again because why? Nobody willing to stand up, and then everybody go, well, we go agree to disagree, or we go this or to do that. No, somebody had to grow a backbone, grow a spine, and say, listen, this is the line in the sand. After today, any officers that found doing something illegal, they are suspended without pay until the matter is resolved. And if the matter is resolved and you are found innocent, you get your back pay. I'm not saying they're not going to get paid, no. You get your back pay and interest according to the bank rates, like what it does normally do for people who didn't get paid for a period of time, and you go long. Because there must be a repercussion for doing the wrong thing. We have no What is the repercussion for police officers right now for doing the wrong thing? Nothing. As you guys say. Suspension.
Well, I wouldn't say there's nothing. There are quite a few police officers before the court, and you also have police officers in prison who have been convicted. So it's inaccurate to say nothing.
No, but what is before the conviction? What is the action to an officer? And if there is an action, publicize it so the public, like myself and other citizens, would know that police officer gone and like with these people, they go on and they accuse them for nothing, but there still is an officer on the road charging people for indicator lights, charging people all over the place, running around the place until the matter solved. No, take them off the road. We don't know if they're rogue or not. Let the courts decide that.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, let's have other people to talk. Thanks again for having me on.
Lincoln, you have no minutes on your phone? How dare you?
Did you see that?
222 talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we take some of your calls.
Yeah. Our lines are open. We take some of your calls. As we head up towards 7 o'clock news, 21 minutes away.
I think in this case,
55.
since the case has been completed in the High Court, and I doubt whether or not the Attorney General is going to appeal this case and take it to the Privy Council, that these officers should be fired. In this case is finished. And in the words of the judge, Judge Ricky Rahim, he said the fabricated evidence against the couple made a poorly orchestrated attempt to justify their unlawful acts. So, how are they still police? How? After this? How they could continue being police after this? How? Nah, man. It's unthinkable. And the silence on the police leadership after that judgment came down yesterday is also untenable. So stay quiet. Or just stay quiet. We go away.
Yeah.
That coupled with officers detained and assisting police in connection with a kidnapping for ransom. Okay. Stay quiet. Or just stay quiet. Stay quiet. Don't say nothing, it will go away. Staying quiet has built public trust and confidence. Stay quiet.
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, morning, Paul Richard, Ragoobarsingh.
Good morning, Mr. Patrick.
Wendell, and Mr. Khan. Morning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you sit down and you listen, all these thing with police and charging people wrongfully and police kidnapping people and all kind of things. You wonder who to trust. You know? They say the only person after God is police, right? When God can't save you, the police is supposed to come to save you. But like now, you really don't know who to trust when it comes to the police.
I said
I
that this
remember,
morning.
I had a matter of time in the Arima Magistrate Court. And the police who charged me went to court. The magistrate read all the charge to me. I watched the magistrate. I said, ma'am, I like to speak. I'm a lawyer. I said, ma'am, you see what you read out there? You see that part there, that section there? I know about that. But you see that part below down there? I don't know nothing about that. You know the police officer try to fabricate a big thing on me?
All right.
Everything Ragoobarsingh?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Patrick.
All right.
All right. Good morning. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
This situation with the silence of the police commissioner and stuff. It is said that the police service is an independent body. No politicians or whoever is supposed to give any directions or orders or whatever to the police service. If based on what happened here, the Minister of National Security should intervene and decide what is or make recommendations or what to decide what would supposed to happen with these police. Would that be considered as political interference?
Yes, he has no role in that, as far as I know.
So, well, you see, those are the little things that causes these kind of problems. Because when something like this happens and nobody says anything, and the biggest law house of the land, the representative can't say anything about certain things. What happens? Where we go from there? The police complaints authority, should they intervene in that? What should take place to deal with that situation?
But there's nothing for the police complaints authority to intervene in this situation. It's already gone through the courts.
So what we do from here? This is the issue. How it is that what is going to happen now? If a minister or somebody cannot make some kind of suggestion or deal with this situation as the how we go forward with this or suggest what, then because it is political interference, then what happens? I think these are the things we call, what do you call it, lacunas?
Well,
I don't know, but that's my question.
They have different ways to hold the police leadership accountable through the Police Service Commission and through whom they decide to appoint a commissioner, essentially. Or if they decide to reappoint a commissioner. That's where their remit and policy direction. That's and resources. That's where their remit is as a government. Richard, you have papers?
Yes, I do.
I have two suggested questions this morning. One, of course, is related to the police and those officers who were found wanting in that case, and the other is related to the cricket match, which has caused quite the uproar. And if people think there was sabotage in that match, as is being suggested in some quarters of social media.
All right. Well, I could start with the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian. I don't know if this answers your question, Paul, or your debate on the poll. The headline on the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian today: lights out on TKR. Fans outraged after Ghana power outage leads to CPL elimination. That's the main story. And of course, today is Thursday, October 3rd, just in case you didn't know. Port workers walk off job again in protest. That's also on the front page. And PCA knocks TTPS handling of domestic abuse cases. All of that is on the front page. And the picture, of course, is that, the main picture is connected to cricket. Trinidad Knight Riders captain Kieran Pollard left, and wicketkeeper batsman Nicholas Puran, and there are pictures of them to accompany the headline. On the back page, TKR robbed in Eliminator floodlights blackout in Ghana. Of course, TKR robbed. Robbed is in inverted commas. And that's it basically for the front and the back of the Guardian. Moving on to the Newsday today. What headline did they go with? After 3 officers held for kidnapping, central businessmen appeal, go after dirty cops. So this kind of leans into your other poll. Boy 4 shot outside preschool needs wheelchair. And the main picture is that of Faris Al-Rawi, Rural Development and Local Government Minister, gets his blood pressure checked by nurse Cherise Remy at the opening walkthrough Southex Expo at Gulf City Mall Atrium in San Fernando. Port workers strike over wage talks. And on the back page of the Newsday, Lucky Royals out, TKR's light. Lucky Royals out, TKR's light. Ghana minister says damaged cable led to power loss. St. Anthony's Tigers beat Fatima 2-1 in SSFL, if you're following the Secondary Football League. And that's it for the front and the back of the Newsday. And the Daily Express today, the headline that the Express went with, TKR outrage. Thousands of fans upset after Knight Riders lose CPL match following floodlight outage in Ghana Stadium. Cops held in car dealers kidnapping. Well, they have kidnapped. I don't know why they have kidnapped. And the main picture is that of some of the TKR players.
On the front page.
Huh?
Kidnapping is a longer word to spell on the front page.
Maybe.
That's what it's me very often.
And at the back page, top cop blocked. High Court injunction prevents promotion of police inspectors. Floodlight failure helps Royals beat TKR in CPL Eliminator. And words of comfort, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley consoles Justice Sandra Paul, the daughter of former Port of Spain Mayor Ethelbert Telly Paul, at his funeral. Of course, it's a wraparound as usual in the Express. The main sports story, Miller time, floodlight failure helps Royals beat TKR in CPL Eliminator. Tigers tame Fatima and Lille and Real's
Good morning, Avril.
run. So that's it for our 3 dailies.
That was a big story yesterday. You know. Morning, Bob.
All right, let's get the results of our morning poll, where we asked you yesterday, do you think the investment in national security is bearing fruit? That was our poll yesterday. The results are in. 91% said no. All right. Let's get into this morning's poll. We'll call us at 222-8255, toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099. And we just want yes or no's. It's on your screen already. So this is it. Do you think there was sabotage in the match between Knight Riders and
So our poll question this morning, do you think there was sabotage in the match between...
Hold on. That's wrong. We played Guyana.
No, it's Barbados Royals we played.
Well, I thought I was a cricket novice.
Sorry.
I thought I was a cricket novice. Wow.
No, I went to last night's game. Sorry.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, sorry. You're right. Do you think there was a sabotage in the match between TKR and Barbados Royals, which was played in Providence, Guyana?
So that's our poll. You've seen the poll before you, and you just heard it. 222-TALK, 222-8255, North Americans, 866-525-1099.
Expert, yes.
People on the streaming platforms, you can send your votes via the messaging portal there. And of course, if you're watching us on M&E TV or listening to us on smart devices, you can WhatsApp us at 318-1021. If you're outside TNT, of course, you need to put a country code.
Yeah.
But
Right.
318-1021.
Anne-Marie says, oh, yes, yes, yes. Dan Raj, yes, yes. Oh, geez, I have to go up. Oh, gosh. Right. Lincoln, test. Let's see, scrolling. Thomas Diaz says, yes. Gregory Bauer, yes. Boswell John, yes. DL, yes. Michael Robinson, yes. Shuma Paul, yes, yes, and yes. Julia Espetis, yes. Good morning, Tang Grandi.
Good morning, gentlemen. Andy Grandy, yes.
Thank you. I guess that, Helen Prescott, yes. Una Antoine, big yes. Toon Luke, hell yeah. Helen Prescott, yes. Kenny out in Harlem, I say yes to the poll. John Chester, yes. Val, yes. Captain Ron, birthday boy, says yes. Let's see. Okay. Pearl Cordes says yes. 222-8255. David Wares, yes. Toll free, North Americans, 866-525-1099. Ben J. Singh, gentlemen, yes. Sabotage. WhatsApp at 3181021. Just tell us yes or no and where you're listening or watching us from. All right. Do you think there was sabotage in the match between TKR and BR? All right. Barbados Royals and TKR. Wayne Bennett says yes. Gene Clark, yes. Afria Lashley, yes. Sabotage. Adrian Couto, yes. Wayne Joseph from Ontario, Canada, yes. Have you been watching it, Wayne? Cheryl Henry says yes. Somebody's asked me what channel showing the somebody asked me what channel in Canada they can watch the CPL. Let's see. And I said I don't know. A resounding yes from Oliver Man Waring. Can you wish my mom a happy 60th birthday? Her name is Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie. Yes, Anne-Marie is an avid listener to the Power Breakfast show. So happy birthday to you, Anne-Marie. Cake and ice cream, send it over. All right, happy 60th. And voting, oh, yes. Oh, yes. Anne-Marie voted, oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Dre says, I vote a big yes. Okay. Thank you, Dre. Let's see. Royalty Forever says yes. Antonia Butt says no. Carol Guevara says yes. Do you think there was sabotage in the match between TKR and Barbados Royals in Guyana, Providence, Guyana? Yes or no? And I really think Andrea Russell just said what the rest of Trinidad and Tobago has been saying on his little rant. All right, let's see. Carol Guevara, got Carol already. Do you think there was sabotage in the TKR match against Barbados Royals played at Providence in Guyana? Yes or no? Right, you have 5 minutes again to vote on our morning poll. Of course, it's going to stay up on our mobile app and on our website at power102fm.com. Patricia DeFore, yes, definitely. CPT Singh out in Caroni says no. Lester Craigwell. Lester, it's yes or no. All right. All right. Call us 222-8255. North Americans 866-525-1099. Of course,
Let's
that's the
stay right.
toll
That's what
free
they mean. We have
number.
better curry than Guyana, so they arrested me.
Ooh, look where you going. Kenwin says yes.
You know the curry debate is strong, eh?
Oh, okay, Wayne Joseph. Rogers 915. All right, thanks, Wayne. I'll send a WhatsApp shortly. Esther Adams, yes. I used to work for that Rogers group. Let's see. Anything on WhatsApp? Nothing there. Right? Do you think there was sabotage in the match between TKR and BR? Yes or no? And I went to bed. I waited for those lights to no avail, so I went to bed. Got up and here the bacchanal. All right. It was Cheryl Henry. They keep saying it, but we don't hear anything.
Stevie Teddy was not my mouth. You professional standards bureau investigating police to me is a joke. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It shouldn't. It should be. There should be an ex. And I know there's the police complaints authority, but the police complaints authority don't have the kind of access inside that they should have to make thorough investigations of police officers in a timely manner. I mean, they do a pretty good job, but I think there's still too many stumbling blocks.
There is. There's a lot of stumbling blocks. Vaughn Drayton, definitely yes. Lester Craigwell says yes. Thank you, Lester. Have a great day. Let's see. I have Kim out in Sugar Gorners saying certainly yes. Thank you so much, Kim. Good morning
So,
to you.
this morning, do you think there was sabotage in the match between the TKR and Barbados Royals in Guyana? What's your opinion?
Good morning, caller.
Good morning. I believe that it was sabotage, and I will never watch cricket again.
No, you know that is not going to happen. You know you're still going to watch cricket. You know that.
Upset, so stressed out. I can't believe that they did something like that. That is a wicked act. And
That's
that is
ridiculous.
a wicked in
That's ridiculous. After 19.1 overs,
they should protest for that. That's what they should protest for.
Puran would have made his 100, his second consecutive 100.
Everything would be good. That is wickedness.
All right. Thank you, my dear. Have a good one.
Yeah, you have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Let's see. Roger P. Knight says yes. Roger T. says yes. Anderson Matthews. Yeah, CPD saying I got your vote already.
I don't even think voting twice is mean as 2 counts. Is they saying that?
No. Well, CPD Singh voted. This will be his 3rd time. I got your vote already, CPD Singh. Have no fear. It's in. It's in. No voter padding here. Do you think there was sabotage in the match between the TKR and the Barbados Royals night before last in Providence, Guyana? Yes or no? As we head up towards our 7 o'clock major news, less than a minute away. Avery Reed trotting in. Let's see. I have somebody from a 905 from Canada. My mouse just went haywire. What's going on here? Saying yes. All righty. Thank you so much.
People are calling for an investigation.
Yes.
They said
it won't change your back though, but
circumstances were too curious and tilted the fortunes of the match significantly at a critical moment.
All right, let's get into our 7 o'clock major news. The ever so gorgeous Avi Sidil Bab is in. Was that a smoke, Avi? No. Yes, it was.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
19-year-old mother of a 1-year-old child and 2 other people arrested for abuse of the child. 3 officers remain in custody as part of an ongoing investigation into the alleged kidnapping for ransom of a used car dealer from Canopia. The Office of the Attorney General to pay a combined total of more than $0.5 million to a Vancouver couple for wrongful arrest and malicious prosecution. And outrage continues with calls for a full investigation following TKR's defeat to Barbados Royals. Details in a moment. This is News 2, 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sintel-Bab. Good morning. A 19-year-old mother of a 1-year-old child and 2 other people have been arrested in connection with the abuse of the child. The child, who was being treated at the San Fernando General Hospital up to late yesterday, had marks of violence about the body. ACP Wayne Meister yesterday said he received a phone call about an incident involving the 1-year-old child. He said a video along with graphic images were also shared with him, prompting immediate action. The video showed 2 children lying on a mattress sleeping when someone began stomping on them, awakening them. As a result, the children began screaming and crying. The video is 17 seconds long. Meister said upon receiving the distressing footage, a team consisting of the Child Protection Unit, a task force, and emergency health services was dispatched to the Claxton Bay area. Medical professionals from the EHS did an initial examination at the scene and determined the child needed further attention. The child's mother, her sister, and the sister's boyfriend are helping the Child Protection Unit with the investigations. 3 officers from the Central Division remain in custody as part of an ongoing investigation into the alleged kidnapping for ransom of a used car dealer from Canopia. The arrests made by officers from the Professional Standards Bureau and the Anti-Kidnapping Unit yesterday came after a police vehicle suspected of being involved in the crime was impounded the day before. 2 of the 3 officers in question are from the Caroni police station. 1 out of the 3 officers is currently assisting investigators in locating the missing victim, Sachal Kunj Bihari. According to police sources, Kunj Bihari was allegedly abducted on September 25th when the car he was traveling in was stopped by a marked police vehicle with flashing blue lights at 5 p.m. 3 men, 2 dressed in tactical police uniforms, forced Kunj Bihari into the police vehicle while 2 others accompanying him were left unharmed. It is alleged that a ransom of $500,000 was paid for Kunj Bihari's release on September 29th. However, he remains missing. Police officers within the Central Division have remained tight-lipped over the incident. However, other officers have expressed concern over the allegations, saying if it is true, more damage will be done to the TTPS in terms of public trust. Police sources close to the investigation said investigating officers are working feverishly to locate the businessman and confirmed that investigators are working on several leads, which may result in a further breakthrough soon. The Office of the Attorney General has been directed by the High Court to pay a combined total of more than $0.5 million to a Vancouver couple for wrongful arrest and malicious prosecution in what has been described by Justice Ricky Rahim as one of the worst cases of police abusing their power that ever found its way before his court. The judge strongly criticized the actions of the officers. He said based on the evidence, they fabricated evidence against the couple and made a poorly orchestrated attempt to justify their unlawful acts. The judge made the ruling on Tuesday in favor of Kevin and Natalia Barrow, who filed a lawsuit against the state following their arrest and prosecution in May 2016. The evidence presented in the case stated that on May 25, 2016, the couple was at their home when police and soldiers entered and placed Kevin under arrest. He was released the next day without charge. Immediately following his release, Natalia, who was a nursing student and 5 months pregnant at the time, informed a senior officer at the Vancouver police station where her husband was held that she would be making a report to the Professional Standards Bureau. However, on the morning of May 27th, as she was about to do so, officers again arrived at her home, kicked in the back door, and entered the house before carrying out a search. The drugs the officers claimed to have found was also never presented in court. The judge also said that he did not believe the officers had in their possession any warrant to enter the couple's home as they claimed. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. Outrage continues with calls for a full investigation over the handling and outcome of the match following Trinidad Knight Riders' defeat to the Barbados Royals, with TKR fans now claiming that the match was sabotaged. The Barbados Royals were minutes away from elimination against TKR when faulty lights at the Providence Stadium in Guyana delayed the match for over 2 hours. By the time the problem was sorted out and play resumed, TKR's opponents were given 5 overs to score 60 runs using the Duckworth-Lewis turn method. The Royals attained the target score, eliminating the Knight Riders from the competition, effectively vexing thousands of fans across the Caribbean region, with them calling for a rematch. Senior all-rounder player for TKR, Andre Russell, took to social media expressing his displeasure with the results of the match. In a post laden with expletives, he said, quote, "I'm not the person to come on the internet and voice my opinion, but this year's CPL, I feel robbed," end quote. The match left many disappointed as star batsman for TKR Nicholas Pooran seemed headed towards his second century of the CPL, 91 out of 60 balls. Fans are also questioning the timing of the return of the lights for the match, as some argue that it seemed premeditated, ensuring the Royals a chance to fight for a win. And the hunting season is officially opened according to the Ministry of Agriculture. It ends on February 28th, 2025. The closed season runs from April 1st to September 30th, 2025. The ministry says during March 2025, the listed game species will be removed from the schedule and hunting is prohibited. It says all state game licenses are $100 per game species, and there is a limit of 3 state game licenses per hunter. Well, finally, here's weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, hot and sunny over most areas with the exception of a light shower. There's the medium to high chance of isolated thunderstorm activity favoring northern and eastern areas, developing from mid-morning. Nighttime would be mostly fair. Gusty winds and street or flash flooding are possible in the vicinity of heavy downpours. Localized ponding can occur in areas so prone. Expect a maximum temperature of 34 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 33 degrees Celsius at Crown Point in Tobago. It is 27 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 26 at Crown Point. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock, 19-year-old mother of a 1-year-old child and 2 other people arrested for abuse of the child. 3 officers remain in custody as part of an ongoing investigation into the alleged kidnapping for ransom of a used car dealer from Cunupia. Office of the Attorney General to pay a combined total of more than $0.5 million to a Cuba couple for wrongful arrest and malicious prosecution. And outrage continues with calls for a full investigation following TKR's defeat to Barbados Royals. I'm Afril Sintilbab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news at 12 noon today and an update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Alrighty, thank you, Avril, for our major news and weather. Thank you so much. Of course, you can join her again. Now, she'll join me in studio here come 8 o'clock for our news brief. All right. Traffic-wise, yeah, it's still where you think you're going to get traffic, you will, but from Barra Tarrier to Port of Spain, oddly enough, it's a lot lighter than it usually is. All right. Okay. So let's get back into our morning poll. And again, we asked you, do you think there was sabotage in the match between Knight Riders and Barbados Royals? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the poll this morning, do you think there was sabotage in the match between the TKR and Barbados Royals in Guyana?
I have a couple more votes here, Richard. Mariano had just called me here a second ago. Roger Seawing said no. Anne-Marie, you're welcome, Anne-Marie. Have a great day. I'm just checking to see if we have any more votes. Okay, Anderson Matthew, I think you voted already. Hector says no. All right, that's it, Rich.
All right. So we had 46 people voting on the poll in the allotted time. And of the 46 people voting, 42 of you said yes. You do think there was sabotage in the match between TKR and Barbados Royals as a result of the outage. So 42 of you said yes, and 4 of you said no, you don't think it was sabotage at all. So the yeas have it in terms of our poll this morning. Of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day, through our programming. We'll give you the final results come tomorrow morning, which will be Friday. Of course, the weekend begins tonight, people, at a second after midnight. And of course, we are driving towards the weekend with full force. And theater is on this weekend in San Fernando at the Southern Academy for the Performing Arts, SAPA, better known as SAPA. That's extravagant news. What in the dark comes to light is on at SAPA this weekend after opening to wonderful audiences in Queens. So last weekend, we're now in San Fernando this weekend, Saturday at 8:30, Sunday at 6:30. And of course, tickets available at the SAPA box office from 12 noon to 6 p.m. My apologies. I think the box office personnel were a little late yesterday. I think they got there after 2. But they will be on time today from 12 noon to 6 p.m. And of course, tickets are also available at the outlets K-Squared Fashions in C3 Center, Gulf City, and Brentwood Mall in Chagonas, as well as Friends of Marabella by the Roundabout. And you can also purchase tickets online at RR Productions Theatre on social media, and you can see the instructions for doing it online.
Better let RR tell them how to get property tax online faster. It's a suggestion. Tomorrow on the show, we will be having Laura Dorrich, who is a well-known entertainment journalist in Trinidad and Tobago, who moved away to Turks and Caicos to take up a position in their tourism sector a year ago. So we're talking to Laura tomorrow at 7:15 about her experience in Turks and Caicos. She's well-known in the entertainment sector in Trinidad and Tobago, and about what we can learn from territories like Turks and Caicos to improve our tourism product and approach in Trinidad and Tobago. And Laura is a great person to interview, so I'm looking forward to that.
I just said that, Paul. I mean, Turks and Caicos is a beautiful island, but it just jolted my memory there from the budget where they said they want to increase the cruise ship passengers and cruise ships to come into the country. But they need to fix the infrastructure first. Garbage everywhere, homelessness everywhere.
Well, the first thing they need to fix, Steve, I agree with what you're saying, is crime.
That as well.
What do you come in to a country that has such a high crime rate, or very less people that would normally come, given the efforts they're making to push the country, the islands for tourism?
But I do believe cruise ship is there's another cruise ship season happening. I believe it's.
I'm sure.
I believe I'll double check it shortly. I think it's middle of November.
In Europe, you know.
Yeah, I believe it's middle of November.
When winter's coming up, they come to the Caribbean for sun, sea, sand, and the other S.
Now, when you're in a cruise ship, so let's say today is what, Thursday? Time you finish dinner on Wednesday on board the ship, you get back to your room, and there is enough documentation about the island, including where to go, where not to go, advisories. They really let you know. But one thing that they need to put in place, to have these guys with these little backpacks or 2 poles up in the air, ask me or something. So people would, walking around could say, can you tell me where is this? Where is this? Where is this? You don't see that. And I mean, this young lady from Turks and Caicos tomorrow, she will tell you exactly how they organize, because cruise ships go there daily. Daily. Bahamas is the number 1 hub. Bahamas spent over $30 million in making infrastructure for their port with entertainment, 40-something odd shops, where when you go to Bahamas, apart from excursion, you can do everything right there. Live entertainment, tons of food. And I actually watched them build it. It took, what, a year and a half to build that? I don't
We have so much to offer. One, we have 2 islands. we have two beautiful islands physically and geographically. We have such diverse cultural backgrounds that we bring. We have culinary delights, we have mass, we have pan, we have chutney, we have parang. We have so much to offer. We have
theater.
We have theater. We have Richard Ragoobarsingh, who is a national site on his own. We have Double Palm.
I like being
But you know what?
But we have a lot of work to do. One, and
Yeah.
I think tourism is the biggest, crime is the biggest issue, but also, and I wrote a letter to the editor recently about that downtown area, particularly in the eastern side of the promenade, and those things make a difference. When I drive through Independence Square, I'm just saying, but why these people don't fix this place? You're inviting cruise ships here, and people have to walk around in that. The homeless people defecating. I just don't understand why more attention is not being placed on these things. I don't get why it's not a priority.
Yeah. Look, the Magnificent Seven. You know, that the Maxis take these passengers to go on. You want to take them on a bus excursion to Maracas. They're not really going for the beach, you know.
Central, you have Nollies, you have
They have the Pitch Lake. They have excursions to the Pitch Lake.
So much that this country has all through the year.
Yeah.
You don't even have to come Carnival alone anymore. There's so much to do.
But you know what I always wondered?
It's an important consideration.
Yeah. What I always wondered was for cruise ships that are not going to Tobago, that we should have seaplanes. You come off the ship, the seaplane is right there on the port. You take off, you land in Tobago 15 minutes after, they have a full day excursions, they come back on the seaplane.
A what? A seaplane?
Yeah. You know, that lands on the water. I mean, you can only take about, what, maximum 10 people. But
why would I invest in a plane that takes 10 people to Tobago, Steve? When you could
because there are some places that actually do that. They fly them from one place to another. Is it practical? I would say no.
So then why are you suggesting it?
You know, but you know, if you're going through the cruise newsletter that is printed, Mariano Brown, 1 second.
You have Ragoobarsingh. We have a thriving theatre sector in Trinidad and Tobago with RSRR, Penelope Rode, the Creative Arts Center. So, there's so much to do, but you have to feel safe to do it. You know? And when tourists looking for new destinations, they first Google. You have to, you do your research. And when you do your research, although there's much to attract you to Trinidad and Tobago, there's a lot to attract you. You have to remember they have to come down past a whole island chain that is very, very advanced with tourism. From Cuba, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Barbados, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Antigua, Barbuda, to come all the way down to the southernmost isles. And something has to bring them here. And you can't have things working against you like runaway crime. You just can't. And then we all know this. We all know these things. So not that we don't know them. Shall we open the phone lines until Mr. Brown joins us?
Yeah, we have some calls coming through. We can do that now. Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Morning.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Good morning, ma'am.
And Richard. And Wendell, if you're listening, good morning. So I already planned for a cruise in the next 3 years. But when I go on that cruise, I'll be out of the country for about 4 months. So that will be the first time I'm going on a cruise.
Really? You're going to love it.
I am afraid of the water.
You won't feel a thing.
But I'm still planning it. I still have that in the works as for these next 3 years during July, August. So,
and you can do it directly. It'll be cheaper too.
Yes. So this morning, the guy who called first, he was talking about what the president of El Salvador did and all of that. You know, hire police officers and get rid of these gang people. But, you know, if we do that in Trinidad, if Dr. Roddy go and do that, you know, going on. So is it that we want to follow these kind of countries? Paul, you tell me the kind of countries they are, El Salvador and the Philippines, and these kind of South American countries, what kind of law they have? Is it similar to ours? I guess not, right? So we cannot just take up, what you call it, like Haiti, they said they had a mongoose gang and all of these things. So just kill out people because you say they're committing crime. I mean, we got to be practical. We want crime fixed, of course. We just can't, train a few, pick out a few people and say, what, we want to kill out all the fellas there, they're in gang. I mean, let's think about it. That's what I mean. That's emotion they're talking from. Emotion. I see the crime too, but I haven't considered thinking about that part. And the other thing, the TKR. Steve, since yesterday the night before I got sour, I haven't gotten over this. And
You
do
and a
you
lot of
know?
people have not gotten over it.
Do you know the last time I felt this way was when West Indies was in the heyday with under Clive Lloyd and Vivian Richards, and when they lost one game, I used to feel that way. And would you believe I had stopped following cricket for a while, but I just like I like the T20. But the thing is, I felt hurt and all kinds of things, and the stomach was churning. Honestly, because I don't like unfairness. And I found that if the 5 overs was supposed to had to play, both teams should have played the 5 overs. Both teams, and not just one-sided. So I find there should be an investigation, and not just the investigation from CPL, but our management, the TKR management, I should say, should have taken up that. But they don't want to rock the boat. But I think it makes a sour taste in the mouth for this format of the game, which was going so good.
Miss Dabney, I have a bad good joke for you.
Go ahead.
I have a bad good joke for you. A veteran and legendary celebrity has come out in defense of Sean P. Diddy Combs against the allegations. Stevie Wonder said he didn't see anything at the parties.
He didn't see? Well, he was covered up.
I think you missed the joke.
No, sir. I missed the joke.
Stevie Wonder didn't see anything at P. Diddy's party. Stevie Wonder and see?
Oh, I mean, because, okay. Well, I read.
No, but you go and drink a cup of coffee.
Before I go, I have been hooked on reading all these things. I don't know how these things come out in the media, but I get hooked on it, and every time I read it, I get sicker. Oh, anyway, Stevie Wonder was there too at one of the parties there. I saw a picture with him in one of the parties.
But you didn't see anything?
Yeah, you couldn't see anything. You all have a wonderful day.
Same to you.
What Santa Claus came out like Wendell, Stephen? Look at him. All right, let's grab another call. Good morning. Oh, not it. Morning. Hello?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Zena.
I find I ain't getting to talk to all of these days. What is?
Well, wake up early.
No, I wake up early. I fall in all this since all I get up. And yesterday, I called the first call as you open the line, and I never get through.
Okay, we have a lot of calls. It goes through on a queue.
The guy who talk about El Salvador, you think I doesn't make a joke sometimes and say we need a Ayatollah here. They just call for things and they really don't know exactly. He had to read properly what went on in El Salvador. You think a country, they have about 6 million people and over 66 million, 66 how many thousand of them in jail. You think that you want that for a small country like this, and is what you call it, state of emergency, police and army, and they have a lot of people in the jail, innocent among the guilty. And you see the how what they did, they had to strip them to see their tattoos and all that and jail them. But how you think that man have thing? They had to condition the mind in prison in towards the religious teachings, and those countries are mostly Catholic. When you condition anybody who go against that, it's punishment. So that is how he was able to try to bring down crime. But I don't think they will want that in this country. So they don't jump to compare countries. Look at El Salvador. And Dr. Rowley could do that here. Huh? Listen, people, talk to all your children and teach all your children. And it's
Where's
not
the
only...
scenes, you know? We on for tomorrow.
Yeah, but I find you very edgy.
What time?
I'm kind of closing up the side a little bit.
What time tomorrow?
You
What
get
time?
like nemesis.
What time?
You get like nemesis.
What time tomorrow you want me to come?
You know what time you just come. But
No,
you
you're
get
moving to what time? The normal 9 o'clock?
get like I find you get like nemesis now.
I want my whole 2 hours tomorrow, eh? I'm not leaving a minute before 11.
Gentlemen,
All
bye-bye.
right. Thank you. I don't know if our guest is online as yet. Is he there? No. We say happy Navratri and Rosh Hashanah to you folks this morning. Good morning. Oopsie. Good morning. Hello.
Morning.
Mm-hmm. Morning.
Mr. Richard and Mr. Pan and Mr. Ragoobarsingh.
Yeah, morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, go ahead. Turn the volume of your device down.
Consider the cricket.
All right, caller, I won't be able to have you on if you want to listen to your radio. Listen to us. There's something you have close to your ear. Use that.
Okay, right. Now consider the cricket. I was a cricket. If, as the lady said just now, if after 2 hours, you're supposed to play the two teams to bat 5 overs. Because when Trinidad bat, they were conditioning the man on 20 over 8 to start at 50%, I think. But they had us to make 60 runs in 5 overs with 10 batsmen. They had to bowl the whole team in that 5 overs, which was very unfair to Trinidad. And the same thing they did in Haiti. When we beat Haiti, score 5 goals, they take off the line. They do real carrying and we lost 2-1 in that World Cup. It's something that naturally has been doing Trinidad for the longest while. Because foreign sports is quite small. I see her personally, and they agree with me because it's the whole night. So what do you again? Right? And with the El Captain, Trinidad can't do that. Because we have too much of different religion, too much of groups to protest. And then because of the simple hanging, all the what group was talking about, don't hang, don't do this. It's the opposition says it's the prisoner have rights and all that thing. Not the rights coming back. You're not trying to swing back now and saying the support. Mr. Richard, I know you're a big senator, but you see what happened in this country, as I always say, is that too much at the seat with people here. All they want to get is get rid of them, get rid of this one, get rid of that one. We are not on country. A lot of us are not on country. Because so much gets went through this place and they're talking about it. Right now, we have a man who is a big government minister have one set of money for people.
Have a good day, sir.
Yeah.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Right. There he is.
Good morning, Mr. Brown.
Good morning. How are you?
1 minute at a time.
We are good. We are good. We are good. We hope you are well.
I'm all right. All right. How's Mr. Ragoobarsingh? Did you get enough attempt to lift the tempo and to speak positive things into existence? In the minister's speech.
That sounds like a loaded question, Marianne.
It is quite loaded, I'm sure.
Well, I know the last time you were criticizing me and telling me that, well, not criticizing me, but suggesting to me that we need to speak positive things to help uplift the tempo and the sense of belief.
Not that we should speak. I was asking about consumer confidence and how all of that factors.
That's right, yes. Did you get enough in the speech to suggest that consumers should be confident? That's just a question.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown, good morning. First of all, let's get you've already started to give us your opinion, but your initial response, your overriding response to Minister Imber's 5-hour and 11-minute presentation on Monday?
Well, Mr. Imber said there's a year again to go, and I can't achieve too much, so I'm not going to do anything. And that's reflected in terms of the fiscal statement. This is the budget. We were able to maintain revenue position, and we're going to have a deficit. Things are a lot better. It could have been a lot worse. I mean, I guess that should have been the headline in the budget. It could have been a lot worse. These are the things that we've been able to do over the last 10 years. The reality is that when Mr. Imber came into office, he identified a number of issues. You will recall that there were issues with regard to data, all right, and the projected number in terms of gas and everything else. There was an issue with regard to CSO. There was the concern with regard to energy prices. Well, 10 years later, we're in the same position. Nothing has changed where that is concerned, except to say that I've been able to keep things together and hold it on. So let's just say that Mr. Imber has a very, very difficult job. The government is in a very difficult position. But if we had to look on the basis of outcomes, and we had to suggest and to say that we are talking about change, we'll have to say that nothing has changed. Well, certainly not for the positive. We've been able to stay in the same position. And the argument is if you stay in position a little longer, right, until 2027, everything is going to come back together again. So just what is the record? Well, the highest level of production was in 2011, 2010, somewhere there about 4.2 billion cubic feet. And since then, we've been on a downward spiral. We've gone down from 4.2 billion, we went down to 3.6, and that was considered bad. And then we went down even further to 3.3. And then Angelin came into position, and then Angelin and Jupiter came in, and we reversed the trend, and we went back up to 3.6, then 3.5, and we really haven't done any better since then. In fact, quite the opposite. It has kept going down. Now that angle of elevation hasn't changed. So the graph in terms of absolute production is declining. And when we talk about manufacturing, and the minister speaks of manufacturing, he even admitted when he was talking about manufacturing that a substantial portion of manufacturing is dependent on the energy sector, particularly since 2017, and we've included petrochemicals as part of that number. Prices are still depressed. So what is the future? Crime is high. The reserves.
Minister Imber, and I want your opinion. Minister Imber also sought to telegraph to the population that there had been 3 years up to the time the budget was ready of growth, I think 1.6 or 5% in 2022, 1.3 in 2023, and at time of the reading the budget 1.9 in 2024. Former Minister of Energy Kevin Ramnarine told us yesterday that there was a subscript in the budget which pointed to the source of those numbers as the Ministry of Finance. What are your sources telling you regarding those growth numbers provided by the minister?
Well, the minister, as I said before, is in a difficult position. So if he hasn't gotten the numbers or hasn't gotten the numbers prepared in the fashion in which it should come normally, and that is an independent third party, well, he has stepped into the breach. So these are my numbers. All right. So we could complain. So I go back. The complaint 10 years ago was that CSO was in a shambles and we're going to fix that. 10 years later, we haven't. And this is a time when we actually need the numbers. Why? Because how we share the pie is going to be very important. We've been talking about the underclass. We've been talking about those who are below the poverty line. So the question is, how many people are below the poverty line? What is the poverty line? When was the last time a budgetary survey was done? That was done in 2011. We're in 2024, going into 2025. It's 14 years late. We are talking about a difficult period. We're talking about changes, as your minister put it, in the Gini coefficient in terms of the fact that dispersion of income is skewed. Well, how do you correct for that? And what is the base? What are the numbers that you're going to use? And the answer, it doesn't have them. I mean, this is not an example of achievement. This is not an example of talking about positive over consumer confidence. This is actually something to be angry about. It has taken, I mean, if you were going to do something and these were priorities and these are things that you had to address, after 9 years, you ought to have done so. Right? So to tell us that you have to, okay, these are the numbers and we have positive growth and so on. But in real terms, we are operating on 2008, 2009 income, even allowing for positive growth. That's the reality.
But isn't that hard for the Ministry of Planning to do a national survey after 14 years to check to identify the data that must be used to craft effective and timely and contemporary government policy? Is a national survey on poverty and other indices that difficult to execute?
Well, as I understand it, they said that the numbers will come out in January or sometime early next year, right? Which is a little too late for the budget, I would think. And this is not a surprise. We knew this is where we were going to be. And we knew this is where we were going to be over a considerable period. So I can't say that gives me great courage, right? The point I would make is not what happened in between last year and this year. It's just what has happened over the 9 years. Right? That's how we have to measure achievement. We have to measure them on the basis of outcomes. And the same way that the minister paints this wonderful picture of digitalization and everything else is going to happen. Well, not that we have a disaster at Cross, which is the Ministry of Legal Affairs and the registry system, but it really has been pulling teeth to get that operating, and there are still a number of kinks in terms of how it operates. We have a very simple thing: let people pay online. That's not surprising. We even talk about getting to accept forms online. Just allow them to pay online, right? And you want to tell me about a glowing future, what you're going to do in terms of digitalization and in terms of what you call it, a cashless society and that kind of nonsense. I mean, it proceeds in a series of steps with a certain level of graduation. For me to have a sense of belief, I have to set a target and people have to be able to meet the target within a reasonable time frame. And if you don't meet it, you should give an explanation of why not. Right? So what we do instead, and this is the minister's position, well, I didn't meet it, but look at the other things that we're going to achieve, down the road. Look down the road, see what's going to happen. Right?
But Amara, I know it's a $5 billion approximately deficit budget, and he suggested that the state is going to finance that $5 billion in part by divestment of certain state assets. He talked about Magdalena, he talked about Clico. He didn't reference TSTT or anything like that, even though there's speculation, or there has been speculation in the media concerning that. What's your take in terms of that $5 billion deficit and how he's proposing to tackle it?
Well, let's look at the saleable assets, right? So FCB is eminently saleable to the domestic public, so that will help solve it. Clico is saleable. I think the argument is going to be at what price. There's going to be a legal imbroglio over that. I don't think that's just going to be we're going to up and sell it, because he's not selling all. He's selling 49%. He can sell what he could sell. Now, if you are a buyer and you're taking over a company, it's not in distress. Actually, Clico's assets are quite interesting and quite possible and quite positive, right? But you don't have control. What does a company want when they're buying a company? They want to have to control. If you're only selling 49%, I do not have control. So that's a funny legal position. So I'm gonna park Clico aside as in terms of a saleable asset, which is probably the asset which should generate the most cash. All right. After that, we're talking about hundreds of millions rather than billions in terms of reducing the debt. So I don't, that, and this is a quick election. There's an election here, right? Getting all of those things in position at the same time has certain hurdles in terms of meeting it. Are you going to sell for distressed asset? Petrotrin. All right. Well, this is year number 7. All right. At this stage of the game, the price at this stage would probably be substantially discounted because we didn't do a deep mothballing operation, and we probably would have had assets which have atrophied over time. Right. So that reduces the value of any asset. So I'm sure he said that he's going to sell assets. I am not too clear in terms of how much money he's going to generate on the basis of those sales.
So the rest of it will be via borrowing, you think?
I'm sure. The majority of it is going to be via borrowing. Well, in my opinion, sorry, let me take that back. I think that the majority of it is going to be via borrowing. I think that there probably have been somewhere down the road with regard to conversations with regard to sale of assets. There ought to have been. The procurement issues, I would presume, would have been worked out. They would have had some conversations with the procurement authority in terms of getting some priority and then probably getting a little looser conditions in terms of getting it through. But there are hurdles. It's not simple. It's not very straight. It's not straightforward.
Do you think the state should consider divesting itself of TSTT and the 51% holding they have there?
I don't know what that is going to do, because who is going to be the interested party? I can say to you that there was a possibility in my time in office of merging Flow and TSTT. The difficulty remains that Flow is a much more successful company and TSTT is not. Right? It has much more investable assets. Flow does not need TSTT. It could kill it. Right? So the question is, who's buying TSTT and what exactly are they buying? From a market share position, it's not strong. So anybody who is buying it has now to come and upgrade the assets. So the reality at this stage is going to be that you're going to be selling for not undervalue. You're going to be selling for more realistic value, which is, I think, is going to be less than what they expect.
But in terms of TSTT, isn't one of their main saleable attributes the fact that they have what they've described as a strong infrastructural base, which many of the other networks work off of in the country?
All right. So since we're talking about a strong infrastructure base, what is that? Because fixed line doesn't...
They have the hardware on the ground.
They have the hardware on the ground. In a world of digital transformation, when we talk...
Even in a world of digital transformation, and you know this, it still comes down to the signal just float in the air, so it still has to come at some point to hardware.
And it comes to a cable. They have any?
But that's the question.
Do they have a cable? They have an international cable network that they're relying on? And the answer to that will have to be no.
What do you think about the issue related to where he's pegged the gas and oil price? I mean, former minister, I'm not yesterday, said he thinks that is it $77 or $78 oil and $3 whatever it is per MMBTU for gas.
What? Sorry.
Do you think the gas and oil price he's pegged those prices?
What did Kevin say? That it was positive? That was a good number?
He said it was reasonable.
Yeah.
He said the oil was reasonable. I don't know, but did he say the gas was reasonable?
He said they were both reasonable.
Well, if you accept that and you accept the prices, nobody knows what the price is going to be. I mean, the numbers I saw suggested that oil and gas prices are likely to be weak before they get strong. So that's going to be a period of at least a year. And that depends on the climatic conditions and what the conditions are going to be this December. If, for example, it's cold, then the price will spike. So we'll be in a good position. So the answer is that we really don't know. It's dependent on climatic conditions. Right? Volumetrically, in terms of the volume that we're producing, not so hot. All right, that's the critical issue because we do have.
No matter what the price is the gain is going to be limited because we have production level issues.
Correct. Yes. So, I mean, what you have to do is to have, and this is the point, the minister praises himself for the prudent management of the economy and everything that has happened. And he showed positive rates of growth over the last 2 years, 3 years, right? Well, all right. Thank the Ukraine and thank the what you call the spike as a result in COVID, which pushed up prices. So what we're dealing here is price effect, not volume, not increased production. It's just simply a matter of price over which he has no control. So it was fortuitous, and we got a fortuitous budget surplus, right? So he crows and says about the only budget surplus in X period of time. Well, he didn't do anything to create that, right? The Ukraine war and COVID helped him where that was concerned, right? So you have to come down to what do I control and what have I changed? What is it in my competence to change? Right? And when we get to that particular point, there's nothing that we could point to that makes us very comfortable or very happy.
One of the main points of focus of many of the post-budget discussions through the chambers and the TTMA is the ongoing issue of the levels of crime in the country. Just as a gauge, what will be the net impact on the economy in a general sense if the state of Trinidad and Tobago were to get a handle on the crime, and where would we see significant gains in the medium to short term if we got that accomplished?
Well, it's not only getting a handle on crime. What you have to do is get a handle on crime, and it has to be positive over a period of time. The fact that you have a dip in crime doesn't make change.
I'm talking, when I say get a handle, I mean in a sustained fashion.
All right, in a sustainable fashion. Well, yes, it should help. That would speak to the positive, the confidence matters that Richard spoke about or asked about on the last time we had this conversation. But until you do that, there's going to be a heavy level of skepticism. That's going to affect any index, any confidence index. And since Richard spoke about it, I will assure him that I will work with the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce, and we'll build an index and we'll measure it from now on.
The issue, I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt you, Paul. The issue of, he talked about Atlantic LNG and probably phrasing it inelegantly, but the reclassification of how taxation is done, which is what I understand. And he's saying that from October 1st, we are going to get billions, I think he said. I think, I don't want to paraphrase him incorrectly, but I think he said something like you'll be getting billions in additional income because of how we restructure the arrangements with the companies in Atlantic LNG. Is he valid in what he said with regard to that, in your opinion?
The proof of the pudding is in the eating. All right. I don't know that we've been in such a robust position or strong position in terms of negotiating. But if they were able to, I know that they've restructured Atlantic LNG, and in the process has moved their share upwards of the total of the new schema. They put all of the trains into one company and have gotten a bigger percentage. Well, that's very generous, I thought. I was very glad for that. And I think the country should be too. Now, as to what were the trade-offs, we don't know. We're not on the inside of that room. And I could understand the minister making many positives in that regard. But I'm sure that the energy sector companies would have negotiated very hard. Right? They would not have given it up. So I will wait to see what the results are. I wasn't on the inside. I don't know what is taking place, but I'm happy to hear that there's a renegotiation. I'm happy to hear that they have 10% as distinct from 10% of the overall train, because they had no position. We made a very bad strategic error in 2000 when we allowed trains 2 and 3 to go forward without taking any interest in them. So, and we only had an interest in 4. And as you know, 1 is stranded. Train 1 is stranded after a substantial, I can't remember how much money we spent on it, but it's stranded. So if we were able to parlay that position into a better percentage of the overall the other 2 trains, that's positive. Right? And I would say congratulations for them to doing that, but I would like to see what the results are. I don't know what the trade-offs are. And as I said, the energy companies negotiate very hard. They're in the business of making money, not being very generous to Trinidad and Tobago. He also said that they had changed the basis of pricing, right? And he was talking about new laws coming into position. And to Tony Paul, who is a former energy staffer at the Ministry of Energy, as well as having worked in the multinational corporations and has worked on his own, has written several articles indicating that we have never fully implemented the reference price system, which is contained in the Petroleum Taxes Act. And as a result, we're missing out on billions of dollars. So it didn't require any change in the law. It required the execution of existing law, right? So when Minister Inwood has been standing up since 2018, I forget what it was in terms of the energy, I can't remember, the 2018 seminar at Hyatt, and they put certain things on the table. Well, that's 7 years ago, right? So, I mean, we have conveniently reached a point where we've done all the negotiations after 7 years, and just before an election, we're going to get lots of money. So you'll forgive me if I'm a little skeptical. I have to see it.
What do you think is, if anything, is going to be the impact of the the raise in minimum wage for public sector workers and the announcement of moving from 4 to 5%. Many are suggesting it's an election year, so you want to present some in parentheses good news.
Well, that's pretty straightforward. You have 100,000 people working in the public service, and the PSA accounts for PSA and huge account for about 80% of them. So the answer, if I could isolate the leadership of Nuge and basically put something on the table, could kind of force them to come to a settlement. Well, I'm likely to have people who are more disposed to voting for me. So you could say that's a tactical move on his part, right? The reality, of course, is who's going to pay for it, right? And when. Now that's the issue, right? So we could make any kind of announcement at this stage. When the PNM came into office, remember, they castigated the UNC for making agreements with regard to payment structures, which they didn't have to find the money for in depressed times, right? So the presumption when you're making announcements with regard to increased pay, right? The presumption is that you have the money to pay for it, right? And remember, this is for a negotiating period which ends in 2022. In other words, it's for the past. What we're talking here is about, we're talking about back pay. We're not talking about future pay. We still have 23, 24, and 25 to go, right? So it sounds good, right? And let's not what you go. Let's not get past that, right? It's positive. It's a positive statement of intent, right? But most union negotiations should really be done before the fact, right? Not after the fact.
In a practical sense, a lot of the pre-budget discussions from the Energy Chamber and other chambers were focused on the fact that Trinidad and Tobago is, as we say, we are champagne, taste and Moby pocket at this stage in our country's history. And there were a lot of suggestions before the budget that, well, some of the subsidies were going to be removed. There was going to be a tightening of the belt based on the Prime Minister's statement about we will see the light in 2027. But none of those bits of advice made their way into the budget in terms of managing the. Yeah.
Let's be realistic. This is an election year.
Yeah, I'm not saying no, and that's why I asked the question.
This is an election year. Any concept of tightening, I mean, let's just look at it. The expenditure profile under the UNC. The UNC came into office when the budget was about a number was about $40 billion, right? At the end of the UNC's term in office, we had reached 60. In other words, it had multiplied by a factor of what? That's a substantial number, 50%, right? And the biggest increase was in subsidies and transfers, which went to more or less 50% of expenditure. Total expenditure is 59 billion. Right. In the next go round, when PNM comes into office, expenditure is cut to 50 billion, so it's down 9 billion. And we limp along 50-50, and then till, of course, we've now split it into 59 again. So that's why I said let's look at the real position, right? When he talks about increase in incomes and the economy grew by next year, we're growing back to to meet 2011 income levels in real terms, right? So in reality, the country is poorer. That's the reality. And that's one of the reasons why you get pushed back. He didn't say he was going to increase utility prices. He said that utility prices will have to go up at some time, right? He said that very quietly in the course of the budget speech. Nobody focused on that. And the answer is that they have to go up. He's not saying that it's not going to take place, right? He's just saying that he's pushing it back, right? I have an election to consider, and let's look at electoral arithmetic, right? We're dealing with 2219 now. 2 of those seats are in Tobago. We're not clear what's going to happen in Tobago, how that's going to come back. If the PNM doesn't win those 2 seats or lose one of those 2 seats, they're down to what? 22, we're down to 21, right? Let's presume that UNC starts off with a 19, right? And that they will keep it. Which seats are the UNC going to lose? All right, now we have some swing seats. All right, Moruga is one, which has been PNM, which has been UNC, which has been PNM, which has been UNC. So it's a swing seat. Either side could win that. So we're going to see what's going to happen. But we also have St. Joseph, which has never really been since since 1976. There's never been a safe PNM seat. It could swing.
But they won it in 2 consecutive elections.
Well, yes, they won it in 2 consecutive elections, right? So in this go round, but not before. And I'm not certain in terms of where we at, what stage of elections are we at. This represents 2015 to 2025 represents a break in the tradition between 1986 and 2000 and 2010, where we've been alternating between UNC PNM, right? Not so we've had a break, we had a change. Well, will it continue? Right? Now that's a guess at this stage of the game. We don't know. So this is a tight period. And that's one of the reasons why Mr. Imber didn't introduce any there are no new taxes. There were none last year either. Right? Well, there were some marginal increases. But then there was the introduction.
Well, again, strategically, he also didn't increase the minimum wage for private sector entities.
And he doesn't have to. The mere fact that he increased it for the public sector automatically means it's going to be followed. That's it. So he didn't have to make that announcement. He doesn't say that he didn't do it. And Mr. Imbut understands that game very well. Right? He just did it for the public. If the rest of the country does that, it's not my fault. I didn't do it. Right? But that's exactly what's going to happen. You think that because they could do it in the public sector, it's not going to happen in the private sector? Of course, the unions are going to go for it.
It's a knock-on effect. Mr. Ramnaran yesterday also shared the view that he thought the manufacturing sector, the non-oil manufacturing sector, was headed in the right direction. What's your perspective on that?
Well, any positivity in the non-energy sector is great. Now, and I haven't been able to examine the numbers. I didn't get a review of the economy quickly enough for me to be able to go through the numbers. But I was a little suspicious when we're talking about repairs as being a driver of economic growth and transport, right? Transport is a function of domestic activity, right? And if domestic activity increased over a period of time, transportation expenses and transportation percentage budget will do so. What repairs? Trinidad is the center for repairing what? International. You could tell me?
I don't know. I never heard we repairing anything. We have some little yacht things down in Chagram.
Yeah. You heard about the shipyard in the south?
Some little yacht things.
Well, that doesn't. I mean, as from a low base, probably you can have some level of increase. As a driver of the economy, the answer to that is no. Right. So I am a little skeptical on some of those numbers. Right? And again, because we haven't had a full expose with regard to what those numbers really contain. So there were some huge numbers he talked about in terms of change, but overall, in terms of the non-energy sector, the non-oil sector, the non-energy sector, did achieve overall growth of approximately 2%, which is a positive thing. There are areas which are doing well, but not sufficient to offset the dynamic caused by the decline in the energy sector. Right? The energy sector is not a small portion and is not sufficient to be able to generate foreign exchange necessary. And you can't force people to pay in US dollars. You can't force the energy sector to be, you have had gentlemen's agreements. Right? But to say that you're going to legislate it and you're going to make people pay in US dollars, well, there are two things. The law, as Richard will remind me, does not encourage you. It tells you what you have to do. So I can't see how we could say that we're going to pass law and then at the same token talk about encourage. The two things don't fit in the same sentence. In addition to which, the Central Bank Act is clear. Right? The currency of Trinidad and Tobago is TT dollars.
Mariano, thanks for being with us this morning. I appreciate your time as usual.
Well, thank you very much for asking those relevant and pertinent questions.
All right.
Somebody has to ask them.
Thank you so much, Mariano Brown, for being with us. Have a great day.
Yeah,
you have a wonderful day.
Yes, and of course, theater is on this weekend, people. It's Thursday. The weekend begins tonight at the second after midnight. That's extravagant news. What happens in the dark comes to light is on this weekend at Sapper, Saturday at 8:30 p.m. and Sunday at 6:30 p.m. sharp. Of course, tickets available at the Sapper box office from 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily, and at K Squared Fashion, C3 Center, Gulf City, and Brentwood Mall in Chagonas, as well as Friends of Marabella by the Roundabout. You can also purchase tickets online. Check RSRR Productions Theatre on social media for further information. Have a fantastic day, whatever you do, and remember to smile and laugh. It's great for your health. Speak
All right,
to you
thank you.
tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Richard and Paul, and of course, Wendell. Thank you, Wendell, for popping by. Folks, let's get into our 8 o'clock news brief. It is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is time for your update to 8 o'clock. I'm Avril Cynthia Bob. Good morning. Former Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Mariano Brown, says the budget could have been a lot worse. He told the Power Breakfast Show this morning that precious little has changed in the 10 years that the government has been in office. He said that production levels have not improved by much for TNT, and manufacturing sector has not fared much better. Former Energy Minister Kevin Ramnarang yesterday questioned the source and legitimacy of the finance minister's pronouncements of growth in the TNT economy while he was a guest on the show. He said that the numbers did not come from the authoritative source of economic data in Trinidad and Tobago, which is the CSO. Asked to comment on the issue this morning, Brown said that the CSO has been in shambles for years and promises to fix it have gone largely unfulfilled. Regarding the 2% increase in minimum wage and 5% increase, Brown said that it was a tactical move on the finance minister's part as this is an election year. He said the question is who is going to pay for it and when. He noted that the presumption is when you are making promises like that one must assume that there is money in hand to pay for it. A 19-year-old mother of a 1-year-old child and 2 other people have been arrested in connection with the abuse of the child. The child, who was being treated at the San Fernando General Hospital up to late yesterday, had marks of violence about the body. ACP Wayne Meister yesterday said he received a video along with graphic images, which were also shared with him, prompting immediate action. The video showed 2 children lying on a mattress sleeping when someone began stomping on them, awakening them. As a result, the children began screaming and crying. The video is 17 seconds long. 3 officers from the Central Division remain in custody as part of an ongoing investigation into the alleged kidnapping for ransom of a used car dealer from Canopia. The arrests made by officers from the Professional Standards Bureau and the Anti-Kidnapping Unit yesterday came after a police vehicle suspected of being involved in the crime was impounded the day before. 2 of the 3 officers in question are from the Karani police station. 1 out of the 3 officers is currently assisting investigators in locating the missing victim, Sachil Kunj Bihari. The Office of the Attorney General has been directed by the High Court to pay a combined total of more than $0.5 million to a Cuba couple for wrongful arrest and malicious prosecution in what was described by Justice Ricky Rahim as one of the worst cases of police abusing their power that ever found its way before his court. The judge strongly criticized the actions of the officers. And the 4-year-old boy who was shot in the leg when gunmen opened fire outside his preschool in Malik on September 25th is now in need of a child-sized wheelchair. The boy was among 3 people injured when gunmen killed 2 men outside of Roxanne's Learning and Childhood Center in Malik, Barataria. Newsday newspaper quoted the principal of the school as saying his foot is in a cast until the bone mends back together. Well, that was your update to 8 o'clock. News in full is coming away at 12 noon.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Legislation sets the tone for how we treat each other as a society. It provides those boundaries and the expectations, and it also upholds the rights of all of the citizens.
Legislation is important for everyone in society as it sets rules and regulations that create an organized, safe, and fair environment in which everyone is equal.
They form the opinion that because you have a disability, that you are somehow unintelligent, stupid, ridiculously asinine, you name it. So legislation is quite important, and I hope that legislation is soon coming so that people with disabilities can be who they are. People first, disabilities after.
Put on his camera here.
Nice, lovely. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ramnarayan. How are you this morning?
Good.
All right, let's jump right into it. Your initial response to Minister Imber's 10th budget presented on Monday.
Well, it was very long, and I think unnecessarily so. And I don't know why he decided to take up that amount of time for. But anyhow, my response is that I didn't see anything in the budget that addresses the burning issues in Trinidad and Tobago, which are the issues of our economic stagnation and our number one issue, which is issue of our crime, our personal safety, our national security. I mean, if I was to do a quick ask around the country, do you think that Trinidad and Tobago's crime situation will improve in 12 months? Do you think our forex availability, your ability to get 500 US from the bank, will improve in 12 months? Do you think that the state of the amount of jobs available to qualify young people will improve? And I think the answers to all these questions would be no.
Well, you made a statement that the economy is stagnated, and the Minister of Finance had a different perspective. The Minister of Finance said that in 2022, the economy grew by 1.5%, 23, 1.3%, and 2024, 1.9%.
Right. So let's take a pin in the 1.3% in 2023. I have a bit of a knack for granularity, and I follow the GDP data very closely. For the first 3 quarters of 2023, the CSO reported 0% growth. So I was very surprised to see the minister report 1.3% growth in 2023, which would have meant that you had, about 6% growth in the 4th quarter of 2023 to achieve 1.3% throughout the entire year if you had 0 for the first 9 months. So I went into the review of the economy. I think it's either page 193 or 194. I think it's 194, page 194 of the review of the economy. And I looked at that 1.3% very carefully, and I saw that there was a superscript on the year 2023, not a subscript, a superscript. And that referred to the source of that 1.3%. The source of that 1.3% is not the Central Statistical Office. It is the Ministry of Finance. That, therefore, is a number that is not coming from the authoritative source of economic data in Trinidad and Tobago, which is the CSO. It is coming from the Ministry of Finance. And I want to make that a very important point here this morning, right? That the authority for economic data is the CSO, not the Ministry of Finance. But in the page 194 of the review of the economy, that 1.3%, and I don't know how the Ministry of Finance came up with that.
I'm going to ask, are you discounting that figure?
I'm just telling you what the facts are.
No, I'm asking you if you say that came from the Ministry of Finance.
I find it very
inaccurate?
surprising. I find that 1.3% very mysterious, and I hope the opposition goes into and the independent bench. I hope that they go into ask the minister how he arrived at 1.3%.
And what about the 1.9 he's reported for the 2024 so far?
2024. I think that too is Ministry of Finance data. So I would wait for the CSO, Paul, to opine. And again, the CSO ought to have by now the 2023 entire GDP record. They only have the first 3 quarters of the year. So again, I'm calling on the CSO this morning. If anybody's listening, WhatsApp your friends in the CSO and say Kevin Ramnarayan is calling out the CSO this morning, the independent authority that it is, to come and explain these numbers to the public, or update the website. Because in Jamaica, and I'm sorry to compare our CARICOM sister,
In Jamaica, GDP reporting is very timely. So therefore, this narrative of 3 consecutive years of economic growth is a narrative coming from the Ministry of Finance. In the fourth quarter of 2023, I saw nothing in the energy data that would speak to growth. In fact, I saw a significant 13% decline in oil production in that quarter, a 2% decline in gas production. So that 1.3% needs to be interrogated. As I said, in
Mr. Ramnarine,
the economy, it's not a CSO number.
Mr. Ramnarine, are you suggesting then, based on what you said, and in response to Paul, you said that what you read out are in fact artifacts? Are you saying then that the Minister of Finance was not being factual in his statement in the budget?
I don't understand the logic of your sentence, of your statement. Anyhow,
well, it's a question. It's not a statement. It's a question.
Well, I'm saying he was being
because you said,
right?
So you're saying that he was not factual.
Well, there's facts are subjective things, right? So, I mean, I could tell you right now, I think the Sawa River looks brown. And Steve Khan will drive past the Sawa River and tell you it looks green.
I think you're comparing Mr. Ramnarine, with the greatest of respect, apples to oranges. I think Wendell is asking, what your statement is that you're questioning the source of the minister's.
Well, I'm saying that it ought to have been a CSO number.
Right. So you're questioning the source.
So I would wait for the CSO to come out with what that number is. But I mean, everybody is the evidence is pretty much around us that the economy is not in any sort of dynamic, state, that, there is a sort of stagnation in the country. That is underpinned, of course, by the sector, by the energy sector's performance and so on. All right. So,
Mr. another question that I want to ask, because I hear this a lot of times from people who are opposed one way or the other. They say that this wasn't addressed, and earlier on you said that crime wasn't addressed and situations of the economy wasn't addressed by the Minister of Finance. If you had the opportunity to do that, how would you have addressed it? How would you have addressed crime in the budget and the economy in the budget?
You asked me a very broad question. First of all, I'm not an expert in crime, so I would not have addressed the issue of crime in the parliament. But my view is that clearly from the evidence, from the data, we are headed to the highest murder rate in 2024. Projections that I have seen, because you could do simple forecasting, we are probably going to end the year at 646 murders, which is unacceptable for a small country like Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, if I was to use my my experience and managerial knowledge and so on, I mean, it's an issue of course, resource allocation. I think that, yes, I think the police need transport. The police needs to be mobile and so on. But the issue with 2,000 vehicles, which is, I'm fine with the 2,000 vehicles, but you all know what the issue with the 2,000 vehicles is. As I told somebody, in 5 years' time, you know what will happen to those 2,000 vehicles. They will all be in some yard somewhere in Silots or something like that, right? So
but I am of that same opinion concerning the vehicles, and I would have said so this morning.
The other issue, of course, is the issue of border protection, which incidentally is a major political issue in the United States. I don't know if you all looked at the VP debate last night, but it's a major issue. And I don't think that issue ever got the attention that it deserved in Trinidad and Tobago. We had a virtual invasion of this country, over the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, the evidence of that is all around. I'm not xenophobic or speaking against the Venezuelans or anything like that. And many of them are productive and hardworking. But it did speak to the issue of the porosity of the borders. And then there's the issue too of the porosity of the borders as it relates to the guns. Of course, we produce no guns here, but guns are, ubiquitous in this country. among the criminal element. We saw
but you're talking about border management, and you said you didn't see the issues related to security addressed, but the minister did say that there were going to be the purchase of 4 patrol launches, 8 high-speed.
Well, again, and the issue is, the maintenance of those vehicles, those vessels,
and that's an issue, yes. But you say he didn't address it, and that's not accurate, Mr. Amnarine. He did address it. The maintenance of it is an issue, but he did mention that. So how can you reconcile those? I guess
I didn't listen to the whole 5.5 hours. Some people have.
But you didn't listen to the 5.5 hours, but you're making definitive statements about he didn't address crime and national security and border control.
No, I said that I didn't see anything in the budget that preferred a solution. I didn't say he did not address it. You running away this morning, man.
I am not running away this morning.
But Mr. Amnarine, which is why I asked the question. Well, it's entirely up to you. But your point this morning you made, and I'm emphasizing it, that what Paul just said. You said that you did not see crime and the economy addressed in the budget. My question to you is, how would you have addressed it if you had an opportunity to?
Well, I think with regard to the economy, I mean, we have had, I think I've lost track of the figures. There's so many figures now. Well, let me bring up my figures here, since you all like facts. Since you all want some data, right? We have the country's real GDP contracted by about 19% in the last 8 years. We've had oil production contracting by about 38, 39%. Gas production contracting by 35%. LNG production by 40%. So you could go on and on. So from my vantage point, you address the economy by, there are many things to do, but from what I understand, from my understanding, my expertise, I would address the production of natural gas and the production of oil. Those to me are two of the critical issues that have to be addressed. The Prime Minister did say a few weeks ago that we have 2 or 3 years of decline to continue with natural gas production. And I mean, I had said that 2 years ago. I think I pulled up the EZP article and shared it on Facebook and so on. So to address the economy fundamentally, I would address the ease of doing business to aid the manufacturing sector in terms of increasing its productive capacity. I would address the energy sector's performance and production and so on. So those are some of the things. I mean, I don't know if you want me to speak for 5.5 hours, but there are lots of things that you could speak about. The issue of crime, of course, has a bearing on the economy. The issue of the deindustrialization of Trinidad and Tobago. We've had so many plant closure. We've had, the refinery is now 6 years in abeyance. I'd already see that being restarted. So those are some of the things that I would address. The whole issue of diversification, I would address. I think the way for us to go with regard to diversification is towards the maritime services sector. That's my personal point of view. It's a pretty studied point of view, and I think many agree with that. But those are some of the things that I would look at.
The issue of the energy sector is no secret, and you're right about that. The production levels have impacted significantly our revenue streams. The minister had to come back to the parliament in the 24 fiscal to revise his energy projections and increase the deficit. Based on that, what do you think about his projections for oil and gas prices? Because a lot of his the revenue projections are based on that. Although he did mention that
I think the prices are good. I think the price of oil that he uses is reasonable. It's a bit high. But I don't think it's far-fetched. I think the gas price is a reasonable assumption. The issue is really the production, because of course revenue is price multiplied by production. So the issue is the falling production will manifest itself in lower revenue. But the prices I think the oil was a bit on the high side. I mean, There is a lot of geopolitical instability in the world, but I don't see the price of oil getting higher than $75 a barrel. But he put it at 77, which is not far off.
I don't know if the manufacturing numbers are still coupled with manufacturing in the energy sector. Could you say?
I'm not sure. There was that issue a couple of years ago, but I don't know if that has been rectified. But as far as, so for example, when you look at what we call the oil revenue in the budget, right? That is that does not contain the corporation tax from Point Lisas, from NGC, from Atlantic LNG. So what the energy sector contributes to revenue is actually a lot more than what is reported in the budget. Actually, central bank reporting captures that as energy revenue.
And regarding, well, you mentioned the ease of doing business. The minister praised, in his words, Minister Gopi Schoon, for what he said she did with the manufacturing sector, the non-oil sector. Do you agree with that perspective?
I think I want to be very fair this morning. Paula Gopi Schoon is somebody I know we sat in Parliament together. I think that she's been doing a very reasonable and good job with the manufacturing sector. I mean, I'm not all critical of the government. I think she has. I mean, I speak to people in the manufacturing sector, and they are very happy with the support they have gotten from her. I think that there is a lot more that could be done. There's always more that could be done with ease of doing business. For example, and this is not necessarily related to ease of doing business, but the property tax. I mean, we all should be able to pay the property tax online. And one would think that when the commercial property tax comes around, you could have, businessmen could pay property tax online. I think as much as possible that we could move things to online payment, it helps. But I think there's a lot more to do. The VAT refunds, of course, is an issue which continues to bear down on the business community. But I think the manufacturing sector is getting the support that they need, but a lot more to be done, of course.
What's going to be the impact of that escalating conflict between Israel and now Iran?
I think it's going to escalate. I think it's really going to. I mean, Israel is fighting about 4 different enemies at the same time. They're bombing Syria, they're bombing Lebanon, they're bombing Hamas, they're bombing, they're probably going to retaliate on Iran, they're bombing the Houthis and so on. So I think that conflict is going to escalate. It's not really having I'm not seeing it having the impact on oil prices. There was a small impact of a few dollars a few days ago. But the issue with the global oil price is really the fact that the United States continues to outperform everybody in terms of oil production, 1. And 2, the Chinese economy continues to be, performing below expectations. So China has not really ever recovered from its very, stringent lockdowns during the COVID period. So that the drag on the Chinese economy is continuing to affect oil demand. And of course, as I just said, the Americans are, drill baby drill. I think that summarizes the energy policy of one presidential candidate.
Do you think the announced moves to renewables, the minister spoke about the photovoltaic initiatives, is it Brecon Castle solar field, and how much impact do you think that will have on diversifying our energy consumption needs in the country?
I don't know. I mean, yes. I don't know if I am not aware of where that project is. I think it's in train. It's happening. But I'm not sure when that is going to be completed. It seems to be running pretty late. But it is, the whole issue of solar energy in Trinidad is something to be debated. I mean, it's something we support, but I mean, the climate is changing, right? We have 8.5 months, is it now, of rain in Trinidad, and that's overcast skies, and then there's no sun at night and so on. So I think wind is actually a more reliable solution because we have no shortage of wind on the East Coast. But of course, technical analysis, it doesn't happen like that. You would have to do a proper wind study and so on. So I think we'll wait to hear from the Ministry of Energy as to what is the outlook for that solar farm, and is it Brechin Castle? Yes.
Are there other ways? Because I know a lot of emphasis is being placed by this government on that 2-year timeline to get gas out of Dragon. Are there other ways that have not been explored effectively to increase gas production in Trinidad and Tobago, or are fields that mature that it's almost impossible to do so without, I guess, striking more?
I think the Calypso project is really a great hope for Trinidad and Tobago, and it's our gas. It's within our borders. The issue is that it's very economically challenging to make that fly because it's 3.5 trillion cubic feet of gas per day, which if that was in shallow water, that would have been an amazing project economically, but that gas is in deep water. It's in over 1,000 meters of water to the northeast of Tobago. So that makes it a lot more expensive, one, and two, challenging from an engineering point of view. So I don't know, again, I don't know when that is going to materialize. I know there have been some positive noises out of Woodside with regard to, they're doing some pre-feasibility works and so on. But I think that is a project which, if I was back in the ministry, in fact, that project actually started, its genesis is with me in the Ministry of Energy, because that block was awarded by me in 2013. I think that is something that I would pursue. Having said that, I am not against pursuing gas from Venezuela. In fact, I think we have to pursue gas from wherever we could get gas. And I think that, but I think that we have to accept the reality that Venezuela is what it is. And it's an uncertain situation when it comes to doing anything with them. Because, you know why? The geopolitical risk, the domestic political risk in that country is very high. So that's where we find ourselves. With regard to the Prime Minister's statement, the Prime Minister is, is correct. He said it as he saw it, because he has seen it, because he'll be privy to more information than most people, or, than certainly the man on the street. But I don't think that the relief will come in 2027. I think the improvement in the gas supply will come in 2028. The reason being that Manatee will come on around September 2027, which doesn't give it a full year of production until 2028. And when it does, it really will get us back to 2022 levels of production. So important project, a project that has to happen, a national priority, but it's not going to, be the big savior that we think it would be, but an important project.
Interesting. You mentioned, of course, the bright spot. You think you agreed with the manufacturing sector making some progress. You had some concerns about crime. What are your do you have concerns? Because a lot of people have spoken about implementation deficits in this country, and how you think we can deal with those implementation deficits.
Well, as you know, the public service is the main implementer, right? The implementer of public policy, of government policy, and so on. Public service reform has been, around. That term has been bandied around since the days of Gordon Draper. In my respectful view, I've been out of government 9 years now. I think the public service has actually declined in the last 9 years, Paul.
I agree.
And I don't know if, I might get some licks for saying that. But there was a time in this country when the average citizen could have named permanent secretaries, who they were. We had some permanent secretaries who were household names in this country at one point in time. You remember those names? Frank Rampasad and, people like that. Trevor Bubsing and so on, people like that. And that this is not to, diminish the current crop of permanent secretaries that we have. But I think what has happened in certain key ministries is that they have not been able to retain also to attract the current talent. And the reason for that is that the salaries in the public service simply are out of step with the salaries in the private sector. So, for example, the Ministry of Energy, I'm sure the Minister of Energy would tell you, if you ever speak to him, because I had the same experience, that the best and the brightest in the Ministry of Energy are very difficult to retain because they are in demand. So the decline in the public service has a lot to do with the loss of talent and the inability to attract the talent, because the public service does not pay what the private sector pays. We've also had, the systems in the public service. Of course, I want to address this whole issue of work from home. I think that we have to have a work from home policy. And I can tell you the upstream energy companies in Port of Spain already, if you visit some of these offices in Port of Spain, you walk in the office and you want to know where everybody is. Well, most of them working from home. So those companies have already implemented a work from home policy where people rotate, and there are some people who simply can't work from home, right? Like technical people in industries and so on. But we have to look at this whole work from home policy for the public service. And again, utilizing the technology, Microsoft Teams. I mean, I know most people like to use Zoom because it's simpler, but Microsoft Teams, you could run entire organizations virtually.
Well, I think we went through a pandemic, and whatever little gains we would have made were not acted upon. And
so I don't know. Again, I don't know the ministry. We have a Ministry of Digital Transformation. I mean, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they are working on digital transformation. But certainly something like property tax payment should be online, right?
We had a long discussion on that.
I mean, I can tell you, if TNTech could do it, if WASA could do it, if B-Mobile could do it, I don't see why the Board of Inland Revenue couldn't put that in place for.
Well, they say it's coming as of October, end of October. Mr. Gunman, thanks for being with us this morning. We appreciate your time.
There is a connection between government policy and law in the sense that all laws start as some type of government policy. So, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, we would have had the recent national policy on persons with disabilities. And that policy talks in very strong terms about the need to both enact laws to provide for the human rights of persons with disabilities. It also talks about the need to amend laws that we have on our statute books right now that discriminate against persons with disabilities. So once that policy is adopted and approved by the cabinet, then the process of making it a law can begin. The difficulty with the policy remaining as a policy, two things. One, it's not enforceable. So it does not really give you any rights legally because it's just a policy, it's not a law. And the other thing is that policies can change over time. Policies can change over time as the needs of the government or the focus of the government itself changes. It can change if the government itself changes. So that it's not enough for us to say, well, we have a policy. We have to take that further step to make the policy a law, because that is what will give full protection for the human rights of persons with disabilities.
Good to see you too.
Just take a sip of water there one more time.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right. Budget 2025 has been presented by your substantive minister.
Yeah.
You as the minister, what I said this morning is that I thought it was a well thought out package.
Yes. I thought it was responsible.
I know. I thought it looked at the country as a whole. It looked at the areas that needed some serious attention,
yes,
including crime. There were several national security initiatives. It looked at education. It looked at the issue of school repairs. He identified the fact that the manufacturing sector is continuing to contribute significantly to GDP.
Yes.
There were questions that were answered that were in abeyance for a while, including the issue of the refinery in Pointe-a-Pierre, the VAT payments for small and medium-sized businesses, the amount of tax collected from property tax so far. And the budget was a budget, to me, not absent of politics, because it's partly a political statement of intent from the administration. Let's not be naive, right?
It couldn't be, yes.
We have to accept that any budget presented by any administration is partly fiscal and economic and partly political. It states what the government intends to do.
Of course.
What has been the response, or what have been the responses from team administration so far?
Yeah, I think it's been very positive. I mean, if you take a look at, we've had 3 successive years of growth, and that is counter to what we've seen in the rest of the region. Many of our CARICOM brothers and sisters are right now in the warm embrace of the IMF. Trinidad and Tobago is the only investment-grade country in all of the Caribbean region. And that is not by accident. It's due to the management of the economy by this administration. You look at coming out of the COVID crisis, none of our public servants lost their jobs. Everyone was paid on time, even when our revenues had fallen to almost next to nothing. And now in this budget, we have increased the minimum wage to public servants, those who fall within that category, and also have committed ourselves to paying back pay for the most recent period to the very same public servants. And I mean, that is unheard of. If you look out throughout the region, there have been mass layoffs in the public sector from Barbados to Jamaica. So it says something about the strength of our economy and the management of our economy, and that this government has the economy in general on the right path. Things are not perfect. We have our challenges, but we are doing the right things and heading in the right direction.
One of the concerns in the last fiscal, which actually materialized down just past the media review, was where Minister Imber and the Ministry of Finance pegged the oil price and the gas price. The gas price is in this budget pegged at $3.59 per MMBTU. The oil price at $77.80. I think Minister Imber would have outlined that generally for the last 6 months or so, the prices would have hovered between $91 and $80. So he went kind of in the middle. Given what happened last fiscal and the fact that he had to recalibrate based on unrealized projections, and the budget deficit for fiscal 2024 widened a bit, do you think this is practical? And he also identified the geopolitical issues and the commodity prices and production levels, which contributed to us not realizing the revenues we projected last fiscal in the oil sector.
Yeah, so if you've been looking at what's been going on with the OPEC countries, you will see that Saudi Arabia had been trying desperately to set $100 a barrel oil as the floor internationally for oil. That has not happened, and I think they're finally conceding that may never happen. The United States has now become a net exporter of oil and gas, and that has dramatically changed the geopolitical issues around the energy industry globally. So we have to take those factors into consideration when coming up with our estimates. We don't expect our estimates to be perfect, but we want to have them in line with reasonable expectation. And that's why we have lowered the price going forward in this term, because we see what is happening in the geopolitical landscape of the energy sector worldwide. And we decided to make changes so that we are in line with that. Otherwise, we would have set an unrealistic revenue figure for our budget, and that is not beneficial to the government or anyone else.
What about go ahead, Richard?
Yeah, Minister Manning, the issue of, I think for a lot of people, we know that the budget is a document of intent, of what you intend to do. And a lot of the times, it has been our experience that sometimes some things don't materialize. And some things are repeated in the budget, but it just never came to fruition. I could take you back to a couple of budgets ago where the Minister of Finance said before the end of the year, people would have digital IDs. Never happened. You have the issue of doing
national Wi-Fi didn't happen.
Yeah, the issue of doing away with immigration cards and stuff like that, which is repeated in this budget, but which about 2 budgets ago was referenced of getting paperless, never happened. It's repeated again in this budget.
Yes.
And so, so there is a disconnect between sometimes intent and actual implementation in terms of having budgets fulfill what the intent is. It doesn't always happen.
Yes, I would say in some cases, yes, but you have to remember that many of these projects are far-reaching and they are a process. Some of those initiatives would never have been completed within 1 year, but you still have to allocate the funds to ensure that you stay within the process. That every year you have enough funds to ensure that the project keeps moving forward until completion. So something like digital ID cards or whatever, that may be a 3-year process, but you still have to allocate funds for it each year until it is completed.
Yeah, but he didn't say it was a 3-year project. So he said it was you were going to get it before the end of the year.
Things don't go as planned.
Yeah,
Okay?
so that's what I'm saying. So does the country have a problem with implementation in terms of a lot of issues, or you think the implementation problem is minor?
In some regards, but I think what we have faced in the past 5 years has mainly been a revenue issue. Coming out of COVID, the world economy has been extremely volatile, especially in the energy sector. We have had lots of changes. We had the war in Ukraine. We've had China changing its economic direction. We had the United States becoming a net exporter of oil and gas. We have Saudi Arabia deciding that they're not going to prop up the oil price globally anymore. Things change. Because if we say something on this date today, in the next 4 months, I couldn't tell you what was going to happen. So we may have said that, yes, we are going to have the revenues to do something this year, but then that may not have been the case. Also, we may have run into technical challenges in implementing some of these initiatives. You have to remember, we have an infrastructure, public service, and in some cases legislation that weren't designed for a digital or technology age. And as we go along, we implement and we make changes. We try to evolve and to make things better. But the intention is there, and you have to ensure that there's funding available to follow through with your program. Right?
While I hear you, Minister Manning, I think at the level of government, and I understand unrealized revenues and funding challenges, but what I don't buy is that seems an unwillingness to acknowledge there's an implementation deficit at some level, because I'm sure the government is aware of these exigent circumstances, sometimes external to our control, when they're making these plans for these budgets. And there is I don't know that there is an acknowledgement at the level that, well, if we announce 15 projects, X amount are done, and an analysis done on why the others weren't completed. And I think that is where the issue lies with me.
Let me use property taxes as an example. The previous land and building taxes tax structure had been in place since maybe for 100 years. It was that outdated and archaic of a system. Now, for us to attempt to implement an evolved and modern property tax structure, you've seen what that has taken. It's taken almost 15 years in terms of reforming the legislation, going through the legislative process, dealing with the opposition, going to court, having to get the public on board with this change because it could not have been done without them, making sure the data protection policy includes data from the various agencies so that we could properly populate the valuation role. All of these things had to be done for something that looks simple on paper, which is really changing our property tax structure. But it is not as simple as it looks.
But I don't think it looks simple. I never thought it was simple. And that's a
many
very good example. Okay, so you took 15 years, as you say, and you had several challenges, including political and legislative challenges. And then when it all comes down to it, there are challenges on the ground with dealing with the mass people who are going to try to pay property tax, who want to be compliant. And then you get that, well, at the end of October, we will go on, you have online payments. Why wasn't all of that thought of before? And those are the issues that I think need to be acknowledged and dealt with.
We acknowledge it, but sometimes you aren't going to see the challenges that you face until you start working with the project. You start going through it. You realize that the legislation doesn't assist you. You realize that data protection doesn't allow you to do something that you thought you could do. You realize you have to go to Parliament and make a change. You Minister of Finance in Parliament almost every week, making an adjustment to legislation so that we can proceed forward. If you look in terms of some of the billion-dollar projects that have been proposed in this country for revenue generation in downstream energy sector, we have an EMA that I think has not been designed to really manage multiple billion-dollar projects at the same time. And we've had constant complaints from various administrations about the speed in which some of these projects can receive a certificate of environmental clearance. But the agencies that we had weren't structured to do some of the things that we want to do in this technology age. But of course, we meet the problem, we try to fix it, but you run into challenges, and we work as quickly as we can to try to work through those challenges so that we can move forward.
Let's look at the rationale behind what the government allocated to the major ministries. Of course, health topping the scale at 7.57 billion, education second, national security third. Let's focus on national security, because I think most people would agree that crime is probably the most critical issue facing the country as a whole. And there were several initiatives outlined, including the intended purchase of craft cruisers for the Coast Guard, etc. More police cars and drones.
Yes.
In the next fiscal, are there specific timelines attached to those announcements, or are those things still being worked out, where the population will see these initiatives as announced and with funding provided for in the budget rolling out in the next couple of months? Because it's not alien to us that we are in an election year.
Yeah, dealing with crime is a multi-pronged approach. The budgetary allocation of national security is just a part of it. The easy part is purchasing national security assets. We've also allotted a large part of the budget towards education, also to social development. We want to ensure that our young people have at least a strong educational base so that they are not too tempted to enter that life of crime. Also, our social safety net is also designed to ensure that the most vulnerable amongst us also have a chance at upward mobility and to living a straight and narrow life in Trinidad and Tobago. So it's a multi-pronged approach. The funding to national security is mainly for purchasing assets for dealing with the current situation. And I would say by January 1st, which is when many of the major aspects of the budget are implemented, you should see that many of those assets have been purchased.
While I think it's noble, I will tell you that I have it on good account that while these monies have been now allocated via the budget, and certainly if all goes as normal will be passed, the police service in particular is having procurement issues getting printer ink and basic administrative things in the service. So yeah. I'm hoping that the systems are in place for the procurement of these major pieces of infrastructure, because then we will get another challenge going down the road.
And as I said earlier, and that's the issues that we've been having. We want to implement, the country has been calling for renewed procurement legislation for how long now? A long time. But of course, with that implementation, it's not a perfect system. You're going to run into challenges, and then you're going to see us coming back to Parliament to make adjustments to the legislation, because it's one thing to have something on paper. It's another thing when you have to implement it within the real world. And then you see the challenges that that presents, and it's a living, evolving document, as is much of our legislation. So as we run into challenges, we have to caucus, discuss it, cabinet, public consultation, and then we make changes that we believe will make the legislation more applicable and workable. So I don't think the police service is going to have a challenge with some of those resources that you mentioned for much longer, because we recognize the issue. We have been making adjustments to the procurement legislation as we said we would, and that is going to be taken care in due course.
Well, beyond the energy sector, which has its own particular, I suppose, what should I call it? Its own particular
nuances
that would be articulated, I am sure, very eloquently by Minister Young,
yes.
Who has been at the forefront of a lot of what has been taking place in the Ministry of Energy.
Yes.
So beyond the energy sector, you have the non-energy sector, and of course there was certain things announced. I think some of the people who were talking post the budget yesterday talked about that they wish they wanted to see some more. Well, they were saying the devil is in the details in terms of how do you grow the non-energy oil sector even more and more to contribute to the GDP of the country. Is there any particular item in the budget that you feel confident as the junior minister in the Ministry of Finance is going to take our GDP forward with regard to the non-energy sector? And if there is, what is it?
One of the major focuses of this government has always been boosting the SME sector within Trinidad and Tobago. And you're seeing the results of that in terms of the growth that we have seen in the non-energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago. The one good thing about challenging times, which we have come out of due to COVID, due to the crash in energy prices in 2016, is that people become more resilient and more creative. And you're seeing that within our non-energy sector numbers. The non-energy sector has shown growth every year outside of the COVID years since this government has been in charge. And that is because we've implemented numerous policies. We have funding with the banks. We have NEDCO that we can support entrepreneurs through the Ministry of Youth Development. There are also programs that will guide young people. The Central Bank has programs. The Ministry of Trade and Industry. And I believe many of those programs are benefiting entrepreneurs in this country. We also have the Exim Bank, which the government has been supporting in terms of supporting the manufacturing sector, because the manufacturing sector is the main earner of foreign exchange outside of the energy sector. So we are ensuring that persons involved in industries that generate foreign exchange are also supported by having access to that foreign exchange that they need to stay in business. So we have implemented a host of policies to boost the non-energy sector and the SME sector in Trinidad and Tobago. And what you've seen in this budget is simply a continuation of those programs.
Well, I have, of course, would be passionate about the creative sector. And even though the creative sector is always kind of mentioned in passing, I always find in budgets. And I know it's always mentioned in passing. And the Trade and Investment Promotion Agency, under which you have now put all of these creative agencies, I'm not so sure it's a good decision, but we'll have to wait and see. Because to me, it just increases more bureaucracy in terms of accessing whatever assistance.
But also the synergies between those industries.
Well, that's your opinion. I'm saying that my opinion is I think it just becomes more for behemoth. We love behemoths in the Caribbean, English-speaking Caribbean generally. We love them. Okay. And it's now become a behemoth with several agencies coming under it. Of course, we haven't yet spoken to directors of that agency. I know we have reached out. But anyway, we haven't spoken to anybody to get a sense of where that's going. I didn't hear much about it in the budget. Maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear much reference to it, which of course it connects to the creative sector, which goes back to the part that it's always said in passing. I know from a creative sector practitioner, sometimes there are certain grants or tax benefits and stuff that you can access. I'm not talking about film, I'm talking about theater. But the process to access a lot of these things are tedious and invasive, and really a lot of the creative sector just doesn't bother. We are accustomed being on our own. We are accustomed fighting for ourselves, unlike other ones that are paid attention to, whether it be bands and calypso and soca and whatever. The rest of the creative sector, whether it be theater and dance, we fight up. Or other performing artists, whether it be choirs and stuff, you fight up.
Yeah, but let me just say that the Minister of Finance yesterday basically gave a broad overview of what is being done in this budget. As crazy as that sounds, after speaking for 5 hours and 10 minutes, I believe, you're going to hear more about the details in these sectors coming from the various ministers who will speak in the budget debate starting next week. We have the leader of the opposition speaking on Friday. And from next week, we're going to have the individual ministers go into more detail as to what these allocations are for and what they're going to do. I do know the Ministry of Trade and Industry has a plethora of of grant programs for various aspects of the creative industry. Also, the Ministry of Tourism and also has been doing a lot to facilitate the creative sector and to really tie the creative sector to tourism and international opportunities. So there's a lot that is being done, and I would think you would hear more about that going forward as the individual ministers talk about how their budget allocations will be spent.
Wendell was on the program earlier, and well, he had something important to do at 7.
You have to go and sleep. Don't pretend.
But he had something important to do at 7. I don't know what he has to do. You could say what.
Say he was going to sleep.
But he had something important to do at 7. But he did bring up the issue of housing, and he said he felt that he didn't hear enough about housing, the building of new housing and stuff, which is always an issue. And I told him I did remember that the minister talking about the increase in the base housing price and stuff like that. So I don't know if you could clarify what was said about housing, if there was anything said, and maybe I'll be a little clearer, because was something that went.
The Ministry of Housing has been doing some fantastic work, and really I want to pay special compliment to the Minister of Housing and the Minister in the Ministry of Housing. The HVIP program, or Home Village Improvement Program, is really one of the success stories of this government. And the government will build a starter home for some of the most vulnerable people in Trinidad and Tobago, many of them living in squatting communities and so on. A starter home for absolutely free. It will be free of charge. It's a simple concrete structure with plumbing and with electricity. So we've been rolling out that program across Trinidad and Tobago. I can tell you for a fact that South East, it has been extremely effective and has been well received. One of the challenges that we had is that the margins were so small that many of the contractors were having a challenge in terms of making any sort of profit on the program. So we decided to build a better structure and to also increase some of the margin involved so that it will become more attractive to contractors so that we can build more of these homes for some of the more vulnerable persons in the country. Also, the Ministry of Housing would be involved in a program of refurbishing many of the HPC communities across Trinidad and Tobago. We had huge housing stock, but many of the houses were not habitable at the point in time. We want to ensure that the stock that we have right now is improved, it is refurbished, and is made available to the people of Trinidad and Tobago for allocation as quickly as possible. So that is the main driver of the Ministry of Housing at this point in time. And in some communities, there will be construction of new homes, but there are many houses out there that are being refurbished, and we want to make those available as quickly as possible.
One of the things you mentioned earlier on is the issue of property tax, and the Minister of Finance mentioned, or he gave an update as at Friday, the 20th of September, 89,000 residential property owners paid property tax. I think that's a strong start. I don't know if you agree.
I'm impressed, to be honest, and I'm grateful to people.
And it's ongoing because this is the end of the month. That should have increased, totaling $91 million in revenue. You would have been on the show a couple of weeks ago and indicated there are 400,000 eligible properties for eligible for taxation. That's
residential in total.
Residential.
But it
which means
97,000 tax notices that would have been sent out.
Right. Which means that this 91 million represents under a quarter of the potential revenue from that. Would that be correct?
It's for all 400,000, yes.
For all 400,000 were collected. So let's just say you collect 3/4 of it. You're on the road to collecting $300 or so million.
Yes.
Would that be correct? Those general numbers, right?
That region. That sounds as an approximation, of course.
Right. Now, the minister also identified that property taxes collected will be distributed to local government bodies for the following: maintenance of local roads, drains, public facilities, including recreation grounds, cemeteries, etc., development programs, and the provision of local